Chapter 1236. Although he had already attained the true immortal physique and mastered the immortal door mountain-carrying hammer, the middle-aged scholar was still suppressed by Yen Zhaoga's divine power and couldn't move at all. Landing between the attacks of Yen Zhaoga and the black-clothed brocade emperor, he could not even defend himself, let alone evade. All of their external defenses, just having been erected, had already been shattered by the force of Yen Zhaoga's fist. As a result, he could only watch helplessly as the black-clothed brocade emperor pointed over with a finger. The black-clothed brocade emperor's face was sunken as he released and retracted the grand commencement divine finger with boundless profundity. At the critical moment, he forcefully stopped his attack. He didn't care about the other party's life or death. However, even if he killed this immortal court emperor, it wouldn't help him leave this place. To him, it wouldn't benefit him at all. Instead, it would create trouble for him in the future. However, he had already been unable to defeat Yen Zhaoga in the first place. With this release and retraction, he had completely lost the initiative. Yen Zhaoga's fists were everywhere, most of them appearing behind the black-clothed brocade emperor. Under the collision of powerful forces, the black-clothed brocade emperor, who had just escaped a little distance, was immediately pushed back to where Wan Mingyan and the others were. The black-clothed brocade emperor was not discouraged as he tried to make use of this opportunity to flee in another direction. After cultivating the bright beginning emptiness body, his speed had never been weak. However, Yen Zhaoga formed a sword seal, causing dark red sword lights to surge and slash through space, immediately pursuing after him. Prime Clear Direct Lineage, one of the numinous Treasure 4 swords, the immortal trapping sword. While this had yet to be verified, many people of the world beyond worlds suspected that Yen Zhaoga was actually proficient in supreme martial arts of the Prime Clear lineage, which was why he possessed the Slaying Azure Dragon and Slaying Xuanwu swords. However, he was the descendant of the Prime Clear Sword Emperor, Di Qinglian. His situation was special. Before falling out with Yen Zhaoga, Qilin Cliff could not make a big deal out of this. Most of the time, they turned a blind eye to it. As long as Yen Zhaoga did not brazenly execute supreme martial arts of the Prime Clear lineage in the world beyond worlds, they would pretend not to know about it. Also, after Yen Zhaoga had slain Wang Zhengcheng and completely fallen out with the Earthly Sovereign's lineage, the Earthly Sovereign's ban on descendants of the Prime Clear lineage would naturally be even less of a concern to him. Anyway, even if there was no such thing, the two sides would still have to settle things. Yen Zhaoga no longer had any reservations in executing the sword arts of the Prime Clear lineage. Now, the celestial trapping sword, which could destroy time and space, was also one of the best in its understanding of the mysteries of time and space. Yen Zhaoga's entire person transformed into a streak of red light, instantly piercing through the obstructions of space. Jade Clear lineage, Aeon Light Heavenly Scripture, Dim Radiant 12 Arts, Fourth Art, Illusory Light, Fuyao Art. Other than the immortal trapping sword, Yen Zhaoga had fully comprehended and fused the concepts within the other supreme martial arts that specialized in speed. When his speed burst out, even the group of perfected immortals could not react in time. Yen Zhaoga instantly arrived beside the black-clothed brocade emperor before punching out once more. The omnipresent iron fists finally forced the brocade emperor to the point where he had no choice but to face them head-on. Looking at that despairing middle-aged scholar, the black-clothed brocade emperor was expressionless as he pushed out with a palm. While that middle-aged scholar had already pushed open the door to immortality, his power had been dispersed by Yen Zhaoga as he tried to resist the force of the brocade emperor's palm. He could only watch on as he was devoured by the terrifying yin and yang with his eyes wide open. Under the circulation of the yin-yang tai chi that could annihilate all things, the pitiful emperor of the immortal court was unable to dodge or evade, and was instantly killed on the spot, leaving not even his corpse behind. Wan Mingyan and the others felt a chill in their hearts when they saw this scene. Candle Sunlight Emperor, who was fighting with Mars, halberd furrowed his brows when he saw this. Both he and the black-clothed brocade emperor knew that Yen Zhaoge was proficient in the yin-yang heavenly scripture. The yin-yang heavenly scripture could guide yin and yang, shift the universe, and was not afraid of being surrounded. However, Yen Zhaoge was a human world martial saint after all, and his opponents were all immortal realm experts who had already pushed open the door to immortality. The miraculous effect of the yin-yang heavenly scripture couldn't be unleashed so easily. Therefore, they were not worried that Yen Zhaoge would use someone else to kill him. However, from the looks of it now, Yen Zhaoge really didn't use someone else's knife. He directly snatched it. When that middle-aged scholar of the immortal court emperor died, rays of treasured lights imbued with faith power flew out of his body and broke through the void to leave. The treasured lights didn't have any offensive capabilities, nor did they have any aura of power. They were just extremely abundant. This treasured lights, imbued with faith power, ignored the black-clothed brocade emperor's taiji yin-yang palm, as if they were in different worlds and they didn't touch or affect each other, just like an illusion. Yen Zhaoge didn't even lift his eyelids. His right hand was still clenched into a fist, and his fist intent spread out. The tiny fist enveloped the surrounding universe and directly shattered the treasured lights imbued with faith power. It couldn't fly away, and it dissipated on the spot. Not only the Tai fist, he also knows the faceless devil scripture, and possibly the immortal exterminating sword. Black-clothed brocade emperor shook his head. Candle Sunlight Emperor looked up to the sky and let out a long sigh. He no longer tried to tangle with Mars halberd and wanted to turn around and leave. At this point, there was no need for him to persist anymore. However, at this moment, he wanted to leave, but Mars halberd didn't let him. Seeing that Yen Zhaoge had completely controlled the situation, Mars halberd wasn't in a hurry to meet up with him. Instead, he turned around and launched a counterattack against the Sunlight Emperor. Yen Zhaoge's figure flashed and instantly appeared in front of Wan Mingyan. He clapped his palms together in the middle. Wan Mingyan, who was in between Yen Zhaoge's palms, suddenly felt as if she had fallen into a muddy swamp from the air. It was difficult for her to move her limbs. Then, the muddy swamp became as hard as frozen soil again, and she was like a small bug sealed in amber and couldn't move at all. Yen Zhaoge's figure flashed again, and he punched the black-clothed brocade emperor, who wanted to leave. In the void, the dark red light outlined lines one after another, as if it was cutting the time and space apart, and also as if it was sealing the time and space. Yen Zhaoge's figure suddenly appeared in front of the emperor of the immortal court, who cultivated the scorching sun divine art. The other party didn't give up resisting. He punched out, and the void turned into a scorched earth purgatory. However, Yen Zhaoge's palm landed, and the purgatory turned into ashes. Then a light that was neither dark nor bright flashed, and engulfed the emperor of the immortal court. Where the dark red sword light flashed, Yen Zhaoge came in front of black-clothed brocade emperor again, and didn't give black-clothed brocade emperor any chance to escape. Black-clothed brocade emperor took a deep breath and let out a long roar. The lamp in the Sunlight Emperor's mirror turned, and the mirror light shone over, and the candlelight swayed. His palms suddenly slapped on the mirror's surface. A crack appeared on the mirror's surface. Then, the void beside black-clothed brocade emperor's body also suddenly cracked open a crack. Black-clothed brocade emperor didn't hold back anymore. He attacked with all his strength and killed the emperor of the immortal court, who was sent to him by Yen Zhaoge. Then he flashed and was about to rush into the crack of space. Yen Zhaoge smiled. He used the Tai fist with his left hand and the heaven-splitting halberd with his right hand. Tai beginning, the momentum of the primordial world's opening manifested and swept all directions. Black-clothed brocade emperor, who had already entered the crack of space, was stuck in the middle. Half of black-clothed brocade emperor's body had already rushed into the crack of space, but the crack of space and the surrounding void were suddenly shattered by Yen Zhaoge. Half of his body was in the cosmos, and the other half was in the void. Even a true immortal like him couldn't withstand the twisting and intertwining forces. This wasn't Yen Zhaoge's attack. Instead, it was the door of space that collapsed when he passed through the door. Black-clothed brocade emperor felt that his body was about to be cut into half by the distorted domain. On the other side, Wan Mingyan's eyebrows were vertical, and her expression was ferocious. Under the continuous eruption of all her strength, she finally wore down Yen Zhaoge's fist intent that was sealing her, and broke that shapeless cage. However, the moment she activated the Yin Thunder Divine Spear and broke through the cage, her vision suddenly turned black. Yen Zhaoge had already arrived in front of her, and he attacked again. Within the dim radiance, the emperor of the immortal court, who cultivated the withered tree profound art, appeared. Under the illumination of the silvery white lightning, his desperate face was reflected to a pale white. Yen Zhaoge grasped the timing perfectly. Even if Wan Mingyan was a leakless true immortal, she couldn't retract her strength in time. She pierced through her companion with her spear and nailed him to death in the void. Chapter 1237. Wan Mingyan was slightly startled as he killed a great emperor of the celestial court. Yen Zhaoge extended his arm, spreading his fingers as he directly grabbed her head. Wan Mingyan's vision darkened. She felt that she had lost her balance and was grabbed by Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge pushed Wan Mingyan's head and quickly moved to the side of the black-clothed brocade emperor, who was still stuck in the crack. After the black-clothed brocade emperor had endured the most painful moment at the beginning, he had unleashed the grand beginning bright emptiness form with all his might, confusing himself with the formless boundary of space-time. Just having stabilized his figure, Yen Zhaoge had already arrived before him. Under extreme speed, Yen Zhaoge opened his fingers and grabbed Wan Mingyan's head. He pushed her towards the black-clothed brocade emperor, who was still unable to move. Space and time suddenly distorted, and the crack was forcefully torn open again. Wan Mingyan and black-clothed brocade emperor groaned at the same time and fell into the space-time gap. They instantly traveled through space and arrived in front of Candle's Sunlight Emperor and Mars Halberd. The black-clothed brocade emperor and the Sunlight Emperor had planned to use this method to meet up quickly. Then they would combine their strength to force Mars Halberd to retreat and then escape. At this moment, they came, and there was an additional cold Thunder Emperor, Wan Mingyan. However, they were disturbed by the turbulence of time and space. Whether it was the black-clothed brocade emperor or Wan Mingyan, their bodies were shaking nonstop as if they would be torn and shattered at any time. Mars Halberd ignored them and continued to attack Candle's Sunlight Great Emperor faster and faster. Sunlight Emperor glanced around, and his eyelids twitched. Yen Zhaoge grabbed the other two emperors of the immortal court with each of his hands. Then he transformed into a red beam of light. With an unimaginable speed, he traversed through the boundless void and rushed towards them. The emperor of the immortal court, who cultivated the Shu Mountain sword art and was captured by Yen Zhaoge, was filled with anger and shame. "Heretic scoundrel, watch out for my sword." As he roared angrily, his entire body trembled, and sword chi burst forth. At this moment, Just like the heavenly abyss underworld thunder spear earlier, his entire body started to explode from the inside out. An unprecedentedly bright sword light exploded within Yen Zhaoga's palm. This man had activated the secret technique of Shu Mountain, sacrificing his body to the sword. He had unleashed the strongest attack that he had never used before and would never be able to use again. It was a fatal blow. Good, as expected of the place where the sword devil Yin Shuyang appeared. After a few thousand years, such a successor has appeared. Yen Zhaoga said, "Only it's a pity that you've all entered the heretic Tao." Amidst his words, Yen Zhaoga did not halt in his footsteps as his left and right hands clasped together towards the center. The cyclic heavenly seal, the dim, radiant 12 arts, the Taiji Yin-Yang palm, the Yin-Yang heavenly scripture, and many other supreme arts were merged together. That bright sword light that had erupted was firmly sealed within Yen Zhaoga's right palm. As for the emperor of the immortal court who cultivated the Filiu Seven Saint scripture, he was suppressed by Yen Zhaoga's left hand, accompanied by Yen Zhaoga bringing his palms together. The other party could only watch in despair as that bright sword light exploded before his very eyes. Yen Zhaoga's suppression on him had already relaxed. He used the Filiu Seven Saint scriptures and the 7 core techniques to their fullest potential. The power accumulated by storing water became more and more vigorous, and the explosive power of breaking the dam instantly reached its peak. The torrent formed an unstoppable impact. The vast, vigorous, violent, and ferocious momentum of the torrent was vividly displayed by him. However, he was facing a great sword cultivator of Shu Mountain, whose attack was much sharper than his own. The last fatal blow was made by burning his life force. Such an attack wasn't something that a martial artist could do even if he was willing to risk his life. It was a forbidden secret technique of the Shu Mountain sect sword art inheritance. Not to mention that the emperor of the immortal court, who cultivated the Filiu Seven Saint scripture, was still suppressed by Yen Zhaoga to a certain extent. Therefore, there was no doubt that there was only one result. The magnificent and sharp sword light slashed through the torrent, and then pierced through his opponent's body with its unstoppable momentum. The 5 emperors of the immortal court, who had formed the 5 elements sun-devouring formation with overwhelming momentum, all perished. Our speed isn't as fast as him. We can't even escape if we want to. Sunlight Emperor let out a sigh, and then he reached out his hand and swiped on the mirror light. There was already a crack on the surface of the ancient mirror, and a new crack suddenly appeared. The 2 cracks crossed each other, forming a cross shape. It was in the middle of the mirror, and even the candle light reflected in the mirror was divided. However, the power of the immortal artifact didn't weaken. Without any signs, a crisscrossing cross crack appeared in the void. It tore the void in the original nebula apart and went towards Mars Halberd. Mars Halberd's attitude became more serious. The fiery red double crescent. Halberd showed a vague appearance of the heaven-splitting halberd, and then it slashed out. The cross crack that tore the void was destroyed by Mars Halberd. However, the chaotic void also separated Mars Halberd and Yen Zhaoga for a while. At this moment, Sunlight Emperor held the mirror light in his hand, took the initiative to step forward, and attacked Yen Zhaoga. Black-clothed Brocade Emperor and Frigid Thunder Emperor Wan Mingyan also forcefully suppressed the pain caused by colliding with the space crack. They chose to attack Yen Zhaoga together with Sunlight Emperor. Even if Wan Mingyan was arrogant, she was also someone who had experienced hundreds of battles. At this moment, the 3 emperors knew that it was time to fight with their lives on the line. If they didn't try their best now, they might not even have the chance to fight with their lives on the line in the future. 3 true immortal emperors who had pushed open the immortal door had to fight with their lives on the line against a martial saint. If this was set out, anyone who heard it would feel that it was the biggest joke in the world. However, no matter if it was Sunlight Emperor, Black-Clothed Brocade Emperor, or Wan Mingyan, they couldn't laugh at all. They only had one thought: take down Yin Zhaoge. Otherwise, they would be in danger. Wan Mingyan brandished the Yin Thunder Divine Spear again and exerted all her strength. Silver-white thunder flashed in the void and tore the boundless darkness apart. It was extremely tyrannical and swift. Black-Clothed Brocade Emperor's expression was indifferent. He pointed the grand commencement divine finger at Yin Zhaoge. At the same time, he used his fist as a crutch and used the flat crutch art to attack Yin Zhaoge. As he turned the crutch, he actually used the Tai Fist's aura. After taking so many punches from Yin Zhaoge, he had some gains, as he wished. However, these gains would ultimately become his. It still depended on the result of the battle with Yin Zhaoge and whether he could leave this place safely. Black-Clothed Brocade Emperor naturally didn't hold back anymore. He displayed all of his knowledge. Among the 3 of them, the strongest was still the Candle Sunlight Emperor. He was the strongest when he was barehanded. Now, he even had an immortal artifact in his hand. At this moment, the Sunlight Emperor didn't defend and counterattack like before. He lifted the mirror light as if it was a huge seal. He directly smashed the immortal artifact towards Yin Zhaoge because of the cross-shaped scratches, the mirror that seemed to have split into 4 halves. The black and white candle flames jumped together and evolved the concept of extreme yang, extreme yin, minor yang, and minor yin. The yin and yang 4 phenomena transformed into all things in the world. It was as if a world was being evolved. It descended from the sky and suppressed Yin Zhaoge, the clear illusory true. Lord's lineage combined the cyclic heavenly scripture, yin-yang heavenly scripture, and myriad phenomena heavenly scripture to form the supreme art of the clear illusory true Lord's lineage. Myriad yin-yang seal. Chapter 1238. The 3 true immortal emperors put their lives on the line as they joined hands to attack Yin Zhaoge. Yin Zhaoge remained calm and composed, his expression not changing. He used his sword incantation, and a red light flashed as the celestial trapping sword appeared. The immortal trapping sword light, which combined the specialties of many space-time supreme martial arts, brought Yin Zhaoge along and instantly disappeared from the spot. However, when Sunlight Emperor's limitless yin-yang seal fell, it was as if the universe had been turned upside down. While it didn't copy Yin Zhaoge's actions, it affected space and time, as if Yin Zhaoge's figure had slowed down. As the black-clothed Brocade Emperor struck out with his hands, he seemed to be omnipresent, and inexhaustible. As Yin Zhaoge wielded the immortal trapping sword, his figure spun. As it spun, streaks of green sword light and white sword chi appeared in the dark red sword light. The azure color was the immortal slaying sword's sword ray. What was white was the sword chi of the celestial slashing sword. The prime clear, immortal exterminating sword could destroy all arts. From a certain perspective, it was most proficient in countering the jade clear yin-yang heavenly scripture. The immortal end sword could destroy all things and was most proficient in countering the myriad phenomena heavenly scripture. With a single move, Yin Zhaoge's numinous treasure 3 swords soared intense fused together and directly shattered the Sunlight Emperor's limitless yin-yang seal. Then he flicked his palm upwards, the flipping sky seal against the flipping sky seal, causing the mirror lamp to float upwards. Then he struck out with a backhand palm 3 times in a row in the air. All 3 forms of the flipping sky seal were unleashed, returned to the innate realm, turning creation, reverse return to innate realm. The three moves were executed in unison, and they were intricate and varied. They warped the world and overturned creation. Amidst the boundless, forceful, and domineering power, there were extremely nimble and graceful transformations. The two combined, pulling back and forth, as they forcibly tore apart the connection between the black-clothed brocade emperor's grand, clear earlier heaven, and later heaven, supreme martial arts. For tales can move 1,000 caddies. When the strength of 1,000 jin was displayed, but with ingenious changes, how much strength could be mobilized? Even though the black-clothed brocade emperor had been immersed in the supreme martial arts of the grand clear lineage for many years and had recently comprehended some of the profundities of the Tai fist, he still felt awkward at this moment. The combination of earlier heaven and later heaven had collapsed. At this moment, however, Yan Zhaoge struck out a fourth palm. This time, the sky-splitting seal had transformed into the sky-splitting halberd. As the heaven-splitting banner descended, the black-clothed brocade emperor's already unstable concept of grand commencement instantly poured out in torrents as earlier heaven fell to later heaven, dissipating into nothingness. His reactions were extremely fast as he simply switched to the Taiji yin-yang palm. Then, spurred on by yin and yang, he executed the crutch technique with all his might, blocking Yan Zhaoge's attack. Yet, Yan Zhaoge struck once more with his later heaven prime clear sword arts, instantly breaking through the black-clothed brocade emperor's techniques as he strode off. At this moment, in front of him was a vast expanse of white and silver lightning. The three perfected immortals worked together to besiege Wan Mingyan's Yin Thunder Divine Spear was the last. Although it seemed inconspicuous, it was insidious and soundless. It was the real killer move. After Sunlight Emperor and black-clothed brocade Emperor restrained Yan Zhaoge's energy, he would launch an attack. However, in a short period of time, Yan Zhaoge broke through the attacks of the two emperors of the world beyond worlds. With lightning speed, he arrived in front of Wan Mingyan. Without giving any time for Sunlight Emperor and black-clothed brocade Emperor to reorganize their attacks, Yan Zhaoge first straightened his index and middle fingers like a sword. A little white qi flashed on the tip of the sword. The sword qi of the immortal ending sword burst out and broke through the silvery white sea of thunder. Then he immediately used an extremely overbearing cyclic heavenly seal to attack. Wan Mingyan wanted to resist, but Yan Zhaoge's palm had already shattered the soundless rolling thunder. Then Wan Mingyan's nightmare came again. The 5 fingers that were like the claws of a demon king came down again. The gigantic hand grabbed the top of her head and lifted her up. With one hand grabbing Wan Mingyan, Yan Zhaoge used the other hand to raise the immortal trapping sword again. Where the red light flashed, thousands of miles of the void seemed to not exist. Yan Zhaoge turned around and immediately counterattacked Sunlight Emperor and black-clothed brocade Emperor. Seeing that Yan Zhaoge was going to use the same trick again, Sunlight Emperor had no choice but to take the initiative. He flipped the mirror light, and the candle light swayed. Yan Zhaoge's fist was instantly reflected, and it was used to receive the attack. Sunlight Emperor wanted to make use of this to prevent Yan Zhaoge from using his attack to kill the captured Wan Mingyan. However, Yan Zhaoge's fist shook slightly. The Tai fist's fist intent became more and more obvious. It was as if it was invisible, formless, chaotic, dark, hard to fathom, hard to describe, and hard to describe. The reflection on the mirror light suddenly became faint, and then disappeared. Yan Zhaoge's fist had already passed through the mirror light's obstruction and arrived in front of Sunlight Emperor, the head of the grand Cosmos 5 manifestations, before the world's creation, Tai. As Sunlight Emperor's heart sank, Yan Zhaoge's fist had already arrived in front of him. Then his 5 fingers suddenly opened, and his fist turned into a palm. The grand clear Tai fist turned into the jade clear cyclic heavenly seal, and it also came down towards Sunlight Emperor. The exchange between the two supreme arts was smooth, as if it was only one move. Sunlight Emperor was facing the same predicament as black-clothed brocade Emperor. They weren't afraid of Yan Zhaoga's fist hitting them. However, when Yan Zhaoga really came into contact with them, and cyclic heavenly seals suppressed them, it would be too late for them to escape. At that time, Yan Zhaoga would just leisurely watch Mars halberd execute them one by one. He has so many supreme arts, and all of them are quite profound. How did he do it? So many supreme arts, and all of them are interconnected with each other, changing and changing at will, and even fusing several martial arts concepts into one. Is this something that a human can do? Although he already knew that Yan Zhaoga was extraordinary, Sunlight Emperor was still inexplicably shocked after fighting with him. He couldn't run away, and he couldn't hide. He could only helplessly counterattack and block Yan Zhaoga's attack. Then, as expected, dim radiance flashed in Yan Zhaoga's palm, and Wan Mingyan's figure appeared. Wan Mingyan's eyes were filled with anger and despair. Candle Sunlight Emperor's eyes also showed helplessness and hopelessness. In the void, cyclic heavenly seal against cyclic heavenly seal. Yan Zhaoga and Sunlight Emperor's palm collided head-on. Wan Mingyan, who was caught in the middle, was suffering. She was stronger than the other 5 emperors of the immortal court. Yan Zhaoga suppressed her, but she still tried to resist, and tried to resist the cyclic heavenly seal from Sunlight Emperor. However, even so, she was still hit by Sunlight Emperor's palm, and her blood stained the sky. Yan Zhaoga's immortal trapping sword light spread out. It attacked Sunlight Emperor first, and then black-clothed brocade Emperor. As for Wan Mingyan, she was first hit by Sunlight Emperor's cyclic heavenly seal, and then black-clothed brocade Emperor's grand commencement divine finger. No matter how strong she was, how stubborn she was, and how strong her body was, she would still be smashed into pieces after being hit like this. Evil heretic, you won't have a good ending. When Wan Mingyan was hit by Sunlight Emperor's palm again, her whole body shattered like porcelain. Her unwilling roar was blocked halfway, and it stopped abruptly. She was destroyed between Yan Zhaoga's and Sunlight Emperor's palms. Yan Zhaoga didn't care about Wan Mingyan's life or death. He didn't stop at all. With the help of the collision, he quickly flew backwards. At the place where the red light flashed, he intercepted black-clothed brocade Emperor again. Every time they clashed, no matter if it was Sunlight Emperor or black-clothed brocade Emperor, they were all forced to retreat. Instead, they got closer and closer to each other. They couldn't escape when Yan Zhaoga was attacking another person. Yan Zhaoga suddenly arrived in front of black-clothed brocade Emperor, and then he stretched out both of his hands. The 2 cyclic heavenly seals shook black-clothed brocade Emperor and made him fly backwards, and he landed in front of Mars' halberd. Black-clothed brocade Emperor suddenly felt a scorching and cold sharpness rising from his back. Yan Zhaoga didn't care about black-clothed brocade Emperor anymore. His figure flashed again, and he arrived next to Sunlight Emperor. He directly reached out and grabbed the edge of the mirror light. Chapter 1239. When Yan Zhaoga's hand grabbed the edge of the mirror light, Sunlight Emperor's expression changed. Then, Yan Zhaoga grabbed the mirror light and pulled it towards himself. The unstoppable majestic power made Sunlight Emperor lose his balance, and his body involuntarily moved closer to Yan Zhaoga. He activated his profound art and tried to stabilize his body. Dense immortal chi also flowed into the mirror light. The surging immortal chi started burning. the reflection of the candle in the mirror shook violently and instantly turned into a raging sea of fire. The sea of fire burned to the extreme, and bright golden light rose up. Then it rushed out of the mirror and poured down like a flood. Yen Zhaoge could even faintly feel that his hand that was holding the edge of the mirror light had a burning sensation. However, in the next moment, Yen Zhaoge activated his martial art. Yin and Yang reversed, and heaven and earth reversed. The cyclic heavenly scripture and the yin-yang heavenly scripture merged together, which immediately cooled down the golden light. Open! Sunlight Emperor's face showed a determined expression, and he shouted. The mirror light trembled, and actually started to tremble slightly. Many fine cracks appeared on its surface. Feeling the changes of Sunlight Emperor and the mirror light, Yen Zhaoge smiled. I've already missed an immortal artifact spear. I can't always return empty-handed, right? On his palm, the dim light was indistinguishable, and the light and darkness mixed together lit up. Dim radiant 12 arts, 11th art, wilderness devouring. Yen Zhaoge's hand was like a prehistoric beast opening its mouth, swallowing the heavens and the earth. The violent devouring power spread out and started to crazily absorb the restless vitality inside the mirror light. Not only the dim radiant sex wilderness devouring art, Yen Zhaoge's action also integrated the evil sword Taojie's concept. For the current Yen Zhaoge, the evil sword Tao Tai wasn't of much use anymore, and its concept wasn't anything special either. However, when he used it at will and combined it with the wilderness devouring art, the horrifying suction that could swallow the heavens, and the earth became even more unstoppable. Sunlight Emperor's eyes flickered slightly. Not only did he not stop or struggle, but he also increased the speed. He almost forcefully helped Yen Zhaoge absorb the immortal qi from himself and the mirror light. No matter how strong your martial saint cultivation is, your body will be torn apart if you dare to swallow such a huge amount of immortal qi. At the critical moment, Sunlight Emperor acted decisively. I'll send you to the immortal mortal tribulation. Both of them were in a stalemate in the air, motionless and staring at each other without giving way. As time passed, the Sunlight Emperor was shocked to see Yen Zhaoge in front of him as if nothing had happened. If it were any other martial sage, even if they could use the wilderness devouring art to devour the mirror light's essence qi, their bodies would be torn apart by the boundless immortal qi, and they would die. However, within Yen Zhaoge's body, chaos was birthed, containing all things, enveloping the devoured immortal qi. While it could not be used for his own purposes within a short period of time, it would also not be able to harm Yen Zhaoge. How did you do it? Tai fist? Sunlight Emperor was dumbfounded. Yen Zhaoge smiled. He forcefully pulled the mirror light in his hand again and dragged the Sunlight Emperor closer to him. Then he raised his other hand high and slammed it down on Emperor Chaoyang's head. Sunlight Emperor quickly came to his senses and let out a muffled groan. The mirror light in Xiao Chen's hand burst forth with intense light again. Surging shockwaves spread out, shaking space and time. The Sunlight Emperor wanted the mirror light to perish on its own and explode to attack. Yen Zhaoge failed. He was also in a dilemma. Sunlight Emperor made a prompt decision and made another change. He directly dropped his leakless immortal artifact, which was crucial to his life. With the help of this explosion, Sunlight Emperor was finally able to retreat. However, Yen Zhaoge immediately took a step forward. His palm that was raised high above his head was still enveloping the entire universe and was falling towards Sunlight Emperor. Sunlight Emperor's heart suddenly tightened. Before this, they had been besieging Yen Zhaoge together. However, at this moment, when he was facing Yen Zhaoge alone, the horrifying pressure increased by several folds. Mars Halberd could now concentrate on dealing with black-clothed Brocade Emperor without worrying about being besieged by others. He could focus on dealing with black-clothed Brocade Emperor. Instantly, black-clothed Brocade Emperor was forced to retreat. At this moment, Sunlight Emperor was the only target left for Yen Zhaoge. Normally, suppressing an immortal artifact, which didn't belong to him and would resist, was similar to suppressing and capturing a true immortal. It would definitely take up a lot of energy, which would naturally lead to a decrease in his combat power. However, at this moment, Yen Zhaoge was holding the mirror light in his hand as if there was nothing there. The radiance on the surface of the mirror light instantly dimmed. It was suppressed by Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge didn't seem to be affected at all. He continued to chase after Candle's Sunlight Emperor. Sunlight Emperor took the initiative to drop his immortal artifact in an attempt to gain an advantage. However, it was all for naught. Dark red sword lights lit up around Yen Zhaoge's body. He instantly arrived in front of Sunlight Emperor. As if a god descending to the mortal world, he struck with his palm. Sunlight Emperor was helpless. He could only barely resist. The power of suppressing heaven and earth made Sunlight Emperor feel unbearable. He had also cultivated the cyclic heavenly seal. However, he only felt helpless at this moment. How could a martial saint have such a deep understanding of the cyclic heavenly scripture? Even a profound immortal might not be able to do it. Yen Zhaoge's palm struck the sky and locked the void. The power seemed to form an invisible land. It pressed Sunlight Emperor in the center. Sunlight Emperor felt the despair and humiliation that Wan Mingyan felt just now. His body was pressed down continuously, and he almost knelt down. Fallen deity, you really live up to your name. He struggled to raise his head and stared at Yen Zhaoge. It's a pity that you're as stubborn as exalted fire. You don't know when to stop, and you're lawless. When Heaven Emperor asked me to help him, I stayed in the void's outskirts and didn't return to the world beyond worlds. Now that I think about it, I regret it. If I had gotten rid of you earlier, I wouldn't be here today. People like you will only destroy the revival of our orthodox Taoism that we've worked so hard to achieve. The direction is wrong. The faster you run, the further away you are from the right target. Sunlight Emperor said with difficulty, the more outstanding you are, the more trouble you will bring to our orthodox Taoism. Yen Zhaoge said casually, since we have different Daos, we can't work together. Sunlight Emperor, you're being too harsh by saying this. I only hate that I'm not strong enough to get rid of you. Sunlight Emperor let out a long sigh. Yen Zhaoge smiled. You're still talking about this now. You're really in the mood. As he said that, the power of his palm continued to increase, and a sudden change occurred. Sunlight Emperor, who was already struggling, was suddenly caught off guard. He couldn't react in time. The majestic power that could twist the universe made it hard for him to stand still. The world in front of his eyes was spinning. Yen Zhaoge extended his hand again and grabbed one of Sunlight Emperor's legs. Then he lifted his arm and directly hung the true immortal emperor who had been famous for thousands of years in the world beyond worlds upside down. The mirror light had already disappeared from Yen Zhaoge's other hand. He used his other hand to attack from the bottom up. The profundities of the cyclic heavenly scripture and the myriad phenomena heavenly scripture were displayed together. The real soil appeared. It was vast and thick. Yen Zhaoge raised his hand and lifted up a real piece of land. After that, he held the Sunlight Emperor upside down and smashed him towards the ground. As the Sunlight Emperor's eyes were about to explode, he was smashed into the ground by Yen Zhaoge. Chapter 1240. No matter how much Sunlight Emperor struggled and how unwilling he was, he could only watch the solid ground getting closer and closer to him. In the end, it directly collided with his face. Yan Zhaoge clasped his hands together and directly plunged this true immortal emperor into the soil, leaving only his legs exposed. As an expert who had already pushed open the immortal door, even if he was from the immortal court, he could still easily crush the fertile soil within thousands of miles. However, the ground and the soil were formed by Yan Zhaoge's true essence. With the suppressive power of the cyclic heavenly seal, Sunlight Emperor was completely sealed inside and couldn't move at all, not to mention breaking free. Even if he wanted to speak, he could only stuff his mouth full of soil. Yan Zhaoge held up this piece of land with his palm and turned around to look at another direction. There, black-clothed Brocade Emperor was in danger, facing Mars Halberd's crazy attacks. At this moment, black-clothed Brocade Emperor didn't need to worry about being besieged by others. Black-clothed Brocade Emperor couldn't resist Mars Halberd anymore. Although black-clothed Brocade Emperor's martial arts were no longer restrained by the heaven-opening scripture, his opponent Mars Halberd was an expert who had cultivated for thousands of years. As a pure killing weapon, Mars Halberd's killing power was naturally sharp. Black-clothed Brocade Emperor could only barely resist with the grand beginning bright emptiness form and the grand plainness immeasurable body. He moved the space with the help of the grand beginning bright emptiness form to avoid Mars Halberd's sharpness. However, Mars Halberd was focused on chasing him, which made it hard for him to get away. Black-clothed Brocade Emperor's heart sank to the bottom when he felt Yan Zhaoge's gaze. He didn't feel fear, panic, or disappointment, but the hope in his eyes was gradually extinguished. Black-clothed Brocade Emperor, looking at it from another perspective, the conflict between you and I is one of helplessness. Yan Zhaoge said mildly, still, since it is an enmity of obstructing our Tao, there must definitely be an end to it. For you don't want to see the latter being killed by Mars Halberd or the white-clothed Brocade Emperor, right? Black-clothed Brocade Emperor's body was pierced by Mars Halberd's sharp edge. Black-clothed Brocade Emperor opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of black and white smoke, as if he was spitting out blood. He coughed constantly. You and your father have been promoted too fast. My road is getting narrower and narrower. Today it has finally been broken. I, and by E, did not decide the victor, but with you father and son, I decided the victor. The winner is the king. The loser is the bandit. There's nothing much to say. White Shirt has it easy. Looking at the black-clothed Brocade Emperor, Yan Zhaoge shook his head slightly. Rest in peace, your majesty. While the Brocade Emperor had split into two, the white-clothed Brocade Emperor was still present. Still, watching the black-clothed Brocade Emperor perish before him, Yan Zhaoge's expression was neither joyful nor sad. Sunlight Emperor followed closely behind black-clothed Brocade Emperor. 3 sovereigns, 5 emperors, 10 supremes. These words were one of his first impressions of the world beyond worlds. Not too long ago, this had represented the order and authority of the world beyond worlds. The difference between immortal and mortal made the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors even more legendary. Zhuangshun and Taoist One Heaven had successively perished, and the most senior martial saint of the world beyond worlds, the Earth Exalt Wang Zhengcheng, had even been personally slain by Yan Zhaoge. At that time, everything would be limited to the human world. To the strong cultivators of the celestial realm, the situation was still controllable. But now, as black-clothed Brocade Emperor and Candle Sunlight Emperor had successively perished, the situation of the world beyond worlds might really change. The orthodox Taoism had been revived after the catastrophe. The top experts, especially the experts who had pushed open the immortal door, were very precious. In the opening ceremony of the Broad Creed Mountain, female Emperor Nie Jingshan, Bai Tao, and others had attended the ceremony, and also received the order of Sword Sovereign Yu Jinbei to help the Broad Creed Mountain. At that time, one of the tacit understandings of both sides was not to hurt the Heaven Emperor's life. But now, as the contradiction between the two sides continued to intensify, it had already reached the point where it was difficult to mediate. The Heaven Emperor was not even the core of the contradiction anymore. At this moment, it was a full-scale collision between the two sides. The death of the 5 emperors would cause the situation to escalate further, which was something expected. However, to what extent would it develop? Mars Halberd might not be particularly biased towards the dispute between the Broad Creed Mountain and the Chelan Cliff before, but because of exalted fire and the conflict in the original nebula, he would not show any mercy to the Candle Sunlight Emperor, who had almost caused his death. Looking at the crimson fire penetrating through the earth, and the figure that was sealed within, Yan Zhaoga's expression was indifferent. Wang Zhengcheng was just the beginning. Now, it was also not the end. Mars Halberd's gaze towards Yan Zhaoga was full of admiration. Although he rarely walked in the world beyond worlds, he was not isolated from the news. Yan Zhaoga's fame in the world beyond worlds in recent years was like thunder piercing his ears. But only after coming into contact with it could he have a concrete understanding. First, he broke the 5 elements sun-devouring formation formed by the 5 emperors of the Immortal Court. If he used the method of fighting and broke them one by one, or competed with the changes of the formation to break the connection of the 5 enemies, and finally defeated them, then it would be fine. Yan Zhaoga directly used his strength to attack the enemy head-on, and forcibly crushed the enemy's battle formation. After that, in a short period of time, he immediately faced the joint attack of the Sunlight Emperor, Black-Clothed Brocade Emperor, and the Frigid Thunder Emperor of the Immortal Court, Ruan Mingyan. This made Mars Halberd even more moved, because when the 3 of them joined forces, they seemed to have fewer people than the 5 elements sun-devouring formation, but their strength was much stronger. Although the Frigid Thunder Emperor, Ruan Mingyan, was from the Immortal Court, her talent were all top-notch. Her strength was almost not inferior to the emperors of the 3 clear lineage. If she grew up under the guidance of the orthodox Taoism, her current strength would even surpass most of the 3 clear lineage's true immortals. Although Black-Clothed Brocade Emperor's strength was inferior to before he split, his grand, clear lineage's cultivation was superb. He who was proficient in one of the later Heaven 5 ultimates, the later Heaven and later Heaven Supreme martial arts combined together, was even more profound. Not to mention the Sunlight Emperor, who had the immortal artifact Mirror Light with him. He was the strongest among everyone present besides Yan Zhaoga. If he activated the Mirror Light, even Mars Halberd was not sure that he could win against him one-on-one. The 3 of them joined forces and risked their lives to attack together, but in the end, they were all defeated by Yan Zhaoga. Mars Halberd knew that even without him, the result of this battle would not change. The 8 true immortal emperors who had pushed open the immortal door were all defeated by a martial saint. Moreover, 6 of them died because of Yan Zhaoga, and Mars Halberd did not even need to do anything. Although Yan Zhaoga did not do it himself, it was not wrong to say that Ruan Mingyan and the others died in his hands. Even Mars Halberd did not expect that Ruan Mingyan and the others would die in such a way because of a martial saint. I'm afraid this is something that only he can do. Mars Halberd looked at Yan Zhaoga, and such a thought appeared in his heart. Human exalt. Maybe this is the real human exalt. In the human world, the strongest martial saint in history, unprecedented, and most likely in the future, the one and only exalt. Chapter 1241. Black-Clothed Brocade Emperor and Sunlight Emperor were killed by him, but Mars Halberd didn't care much about it. After thousands of years of war, he had seen too much life and death. Even he himself could be said to have died once. Comparatively speaking, the death of the Candle Sunlight Emperor did not affect Mars Halberd as much as the death of the Earth Exalt, Wang Zhengcheng. However, killing the black-clothed Brocade Emperor made Mars Halberd feel somewhat complicated. Senior, with all due respect, the hatred between you and the descendants of the Grand Pure, one doesn't seem to be as deep as the hatred between you and the dragons of the Fire Dragon world. Now Yin Zhaoge also turned his head to look at Mars Halberd. Back then in the 9 underworlds, you were schemed against and besieged by the sovereigns of the heretics. Although the Brocade Emperor had not yet split up, the black-clothed Brocade Emperor could be considered as the main culprit to some extent. His Majesty the white-clothed Brocade Emperor may have some old enmity with you, but he would not borrow the blade of an external Tao, Yin Zhaoge said. In the past, the senior of the Grand Clear lineage, Taoist Xuanzhong, helped the dragon race to suppress you. It is only natural that you would want to settle this debt with the white-clothed Brocade Emperor. Still, it should not be a death enmity. Yin Zhaoge did not intend to interfere in the enmity between the white-clothed Brocade Emperor and Mars Halberd. Today is the end. Mars Halberd said, slowly. Mars Halberd didn't feel offended by Yin Zhaoge's mediation. Although Mars Halberd had just witnessed Yin Zhaoge's unparalleled feat, he didn't sense any threat from his words, except for his hatred for the dragons of the Fire Dragon world, which would never stop until one of them died. Mars Halberd wouldn't bother about other things most of the time. Now that the black-clothed Brocade Emperor had died at his hands, his enmity with the descendants of the Grand Clear lineage had come to an end. Of course, if the white-clothed Brocade Emperor wanted to fight again, Mars Halberd would not be afraid or evade. Mars Halberd looked at Yin Zhaoge and said, "You are proficient in the immortal exterminating sword and the Tai fist. You can stop the treasured light imbued with the power of faith of the heretics, which makes the heretics at a higher level unable to detect what is happening here in a short period of time." At the same time, it was inconvenient to communicate in the original nebula. Because of Yin Zhaoge's strength and Mars Halberd's tacit cooperation, Wan Mingyan, the Sunlight Emperor, and the others had no time to communicate with the outside world. However, 6 true immortals have gone missing for a long time. It is only a matter of time before the heretics find out. Moreover, Wan Mingyan and the other 5 were together with Sunlight Emperor and black-clothed Brocade Emperor, which attracted a lot of attention. Although they were in the same trade, they were definitely not on the same side. They would be on guard against each other. Those who knew about it would also pay more attention to it. If they disappeared together, they would attract attention more quickly. The situation in the original nebula was complicated. If someone really lost contact with him, it would be difficult for others to find him. However, as time dragged on, the other party would definitely pay more attention to it. After all, Sunlight Emperor, Wan Mingyan, and the others didn't come out aimlessly. They had free time to explore the original nebula. They were also responsible for finding clues about Xiao Junhuang, the exalted wood luminary. If I return to the world beyond worlds with your father and the others, I might not be able to make it back in time. Mars Halberd said in a deep voice. As the two spoke, they returned to the ruins of the Heavenly Court's divine palace. In the ruins, there were cracks everywhere, revealing the appearance of the void world inside. At the same time, because of the previous battle between the two, the close distance had affected the time and space again. The void world had become extremely unstable. The Songhua divine tree was taken away by exalted fire luminary. After leaving the suppression of the divine tree, the space world was about to shatter. There were already signs of doomsday. Senior, you are right. Although the immortal court heretics and the earthly sovereign have lost the whereabouts of Sunlight Emperor and the others, it is still possible to determine the approximate range of their disappearance. Yen Zhaoge said as he walked. The time and space in the original nebula were constantly changing, but it wasn't necessarily omnipotent. If there was an expert with a high enough cultivation or a large number of people, it was still possible to find this place. Although it wasn't certain, they still needed to be vigilant. So, I plan to move the door that leads to the pill hall. Yen Zhaoge said. Mars Halberd was a little surprised. Can you do it? Such a move didn't only depend on one's cultivation. The exquisiteness of it wasn't something that ordinary people could achieve. It wasn't something that could be changed with pure strength. It's because we are in an environment like the original nebula that we don't have full confidence. That's why we can give it a try. Of course, we still have to stay in the original nebula, Yen Zhaoge answered. We don't have full confidence to find this place. So, we might as well try it. Yen Zhaoge could do more things after he reached the supreme realm and achieved the human immortal body. That was the reason why he made a breakthrough today. After all, he didn't know that Sunlight Emperor and the others would find this place. He said to Mars Halberd, although it's hard to locate in the original nebula, if you go back and find my father will have a way to find me after I move. Before Yen Zhaoge left the mountain, he had prepared with Yen Di and left a secret method. Later, Yen Zhaoge would activate the secret method. When Yen Di found him, he would have the chance to find him. Since you are confident, let's not waste any more time. I will go now. Mars Halberd nodded. He also had a way to contact Exalted Fire Luminary, Suo Mingzhang. Although Suo Mingzhang was being chased and counter-chased by the experts of the Immortal Court, Yen Zhaoge cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Senior." After seeing Mars Halberd off, Yen Zhaoge returned to the world that was about to break. A corner of the shadow dissipated, and streams of light appeared. With the dim radiant wheel as the center, the extreme Yang seal, the light Sword seal, the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword, and the evil sword Tao Tai, the 4 high-grade sacred weapons, surrounded and bathed in the colorful light. As Yen Zhaoge entered, the shadow shrouded again and covered everything. Up. Yen Zhaoge put his palms together. The 5 seals that were fixed by the 5 treasures rotated together and formed a formation vaguely. Under the operation of the formation, the colorful light and Yen Zhaoge began to withdraw together. Under the cover of the shadow, the colorful light gradually became a small dot. The time and space folded and became elusive, drifting in the original nebula. And the space near the ruins finally began to collapse completely. From the outside, the colorful light disappeared. It was like a group of faint shadows drifting aimlessly in the time and space. While Yen Zhaoge was in the shadow and in the colorful light, he could still see the inside of the light passing through the time and space and leading to the other side of the void. There was a strong existence standing there quietly. I need 5 people, but I don't know whether I can find female emperor and whether she is willing to help me or not. Yen Zhaoge sat in the colorful light with his legs crossed and breathed in the fragrance of medicine. Exalted Fire Luminary, Suo Mingzhang, made more and more noise. No matter what they thought, Earthly Sovereign and Sword Sovereign would still stay in the void. In this way, Astro Sovereign could stay in the world beyond worlds to keep an eye on Concealed Sovereign and also intimidate others. Yen Di and Nye Jingshan could both leave the world beyond worlds. Including Yen Zhaoge and Mars Halberd, there were 4 people. But the 5th person made Yen Zhaoge think a little bit. Chapter 1242. Yen Zhaoge's plan required 5 people. This was not a random selection of 5 people. Rather, they had to be at least at the true immortal level. It didn't matter if his realm wasn't high enough, but he had to be strong enough. there was no need to mention Mars' halberd. Whether he was a leakless immortal weapon or a true immortal emperor, he met all the criteria. Whether it was Yen Zhaoge himself at the 9th level of the martial saint realm, or Yen Di and Nie Jingshan at the human exalt stage now, while they were all martial saints, they were still able to hold their own against most true immortal experts. However, there were only 4 of them, and one was missing. Female Empress Jie Mingkong, no matter in terms of strength or relationship, was the most suitable candidate. Unfortunately, after they parted that day, there was no news from her. Even Astro Sovereign Chen Xuanzong couldn't contact her. Yen Zhaoge felt that Mars Halberd would not be able to find Jie Mingkong, although he himself had reached the utmost exalt realm and possessed astonishing strength, to the point where he could slap the vast majority of leakless true immortals around like balls. It was a pity that quality could not replace quantity in this method. For an immortal artifact like Mars Halberd, who was like an independent life, he was the only one here. He didn't have to count on the origin opening sword, nor did he have to count on the mirror light that Yen Zhaoge had obtained this time. Although the profound sky purple gold cauldron was good, it could not be counted on for the same reason. Moreover, in this trip to the pill hall, Yen Zhaoge believed that the profound sky purple gold furnace would naturally be able to display its unique use. Even if they could fill the vacancy of the 5th person, they would probably be affected at the critical moment, leading to failure on the verge of success. The white-clothed brocade emperor. Yen Zhaoge gazed into the sky, his thoughts wandering. Oh, right. He's the only one left. I'll just call him the brocade emperor in the future. With the death of the black-clothed brocade emperor, the white-clothed brocade emperor's strength would naturally rise as well, returning to their previous level. The problem, however, was that no one knew where the white-clothed brocade emperor was currently. Back when the Earth Exalt Wang Zhengcheng had planned to tie down Yen Zhaoge and the others so that Taoist One Heaven could hunt down and kill Xue Chuqing, the white-clothed brocade emperor had not appeared for some unknown reason. Even after Yen Zhaoge found Astro Sovereign and returned to the world beyond worlds, there was still no definite news about the white-clothed brocade emperor. Yen Zhaoge had previously had his suspicions. Now that he had seen the black-clothed brocade emperor, he felt that his suspicions had most likely come true. Back then, the white-clothed brocade emperor might have been held back by the people of the immortal court. Still, it could be seen from the black-clothed brocade emperor that the white-clothed brocade emperor should be fine. It was just that he had not returned to the world beyond worlds for some unknown reason. Sadly, I'm afraid that it would be hard to count on it now. Yen Zhaoge sighed. There was no need to consider the Siluo emperor unless it was absolutely necessary. Perhaps this good old man did not intend to sit on the fence and sway left and right, but he would most likely not help either side in the battle between Broad Creed Mountain, Jade Capital Crag, and Chelan Cliff. This was related to his usual style and way of doing things. It didn't mean that he would easily lean towards the Broad Creed Mountain side when he was tempted by the pill hall. Meanwhile, Yen Zhaoge did not intend to tempt him, because there were far better candidates than him. Their relationship with the lineages of the roving Jade Heaven's profound sovereign and the Dragon Spring Emperor was far closer than that of the Encompassing Emperor or even the Brocade Emperor. It was just that Yen Zhaoge was a little hesitant. Since he had never met the Sword Sovereign, Yu Jinbei, it was hard to tell his attitude towards the roving Jade Heavens. Although Yu Jinbei and Long Xingquan were of the same lineage, their relationship didn't seem to have any grudges because of the conflict between the world beyond worlds and the roving Jade Heavens. However, if the roving Jade Heavens Peak experts were to interfere in the world beyond worlds' internal conflict, it was hard to predict what the Sword Sovereign's attitude would be. The grudges between him and the Prime Clear Lineage's experts could be written into a thick book. I can't contact Senior Apprentice Uncle Yu now. Yen Zhaoge raised his head slightly time is tight. If I can't find the female emperor, I think senior apprentice Uncle Long and the others are the most suitable. Yu Jinbei might not be unhappy about this. If there were any problems, he could only slowly deal with it later. As he was thinking, Yan Zhaoge flipped his palm, and a small bronze mirror appeared in his palm. There was a crisscrossing cross-shaped crack on the mirror's surface, which divided the mirror into 4 pieces. Currently, there was a candle flame reflected on the mirror's surface, and it was shaking slightly. Compared to before, its spirituality is a little weaker. Yan Zhaoge could see it clearly. These 2 cracks are the result of a special controlling technique. At that time, it allowed the mirror light to display its miraculous effects. However, it's still damaged. I'll have to find a way to repair it later. He looked at the mirror light that had shrunk a lot due to its lack of power. After observing it for a while, he kept it. Then, Yan Zhaoge's attention landed on the dim radiant wheel again. After Yan Zhaoge had ascended to the exalt's position, he already had some ideas. An idea that challenged the world's common sense once again. A martial saint refining an immortal artifact. Of course, it wasn't done by himself. The foundation came from the dim radiant emperor Yin Tianxia. Because of this, Yan Zhaoge had some confidence. After today's battle, his confidence had increased even more. However, he wasn't in a rush. Although he urgently needed to increase his strength, Yan Zhaoge's gaze landed on the other side of the distant space where the colorful lights were connected to. The black silhouette of the hall was faintly discernible. Yan Zhaoge looked at that place and fell into deep thought. His gaze was empty, which was rarely seen. It seemed like he was daydreaming, looking at the pill hall of the heavenly court's divine palace that was almost completely preserved. Many scenes from the depths of Yan Zhaoge's memories gushed out like a tide. At this moment, Yan Zhaoge thought of many things. As his thoughts moved, he couldn't help but recall the ice-cold feeling when his consciousness approached the hall. It was as if someone was staring at him coldly. Is there someone else already there? Is it someone who existed before the Great Calamity and stayed in the pill hall after the Great Calamity? Or is it someone who found the pill hall after the Great Calamity and got trapped inside? When collecting the profound sky purple golden furnace, 6 immortal bridge martial saints went missing because of the pill hall. Their whereabouts were still unknown for so many years. However, that ice cold will had already existed before they went missing. If it's not someone else, then Yan Zhaoge's pupils shrunk slightly, and his eyes narrowed. He no longer emptied his mind. He focused his gaze again, and his gaze became focused. He stared at the black silhouette in the faraway void, and didn't say anything for a long time. In silence, Yan Zhaoge was observing the scene on the other side of the colorful lights while cultivating on his own. Yan Zhaoge, who was in the martial saint realm, couldn't refine the immortal qi that he had absorbed and devoured the sunlight emperor and the mirror light. However, it was also beneficial to the martial artist's body if he used it. At the same time, it could be of help when Yan Zhaoge repaired the mirror light and could be used to nourish the dim radiant wheel. Time passed quickly, day by day. Yan Zhaoge carefully maintained the cover brought by the dim radiant wheel. He was drifting in the space turbulence of the original nebula, avoiding the eyes and ears of the experts of the immortal court. Time flowed like water. Under Yan Zhaoge's patience, dawn finally came. He received Yendi's message. Yendi, Mars Halberd, and the others had already found him and were about to arrive. Chapter 1243. In the original nebula, communication was not easy. It was very easy to cause lag and delay. Yan Zhaoge received Yendi's message, which meant that Yendi and the others had already arrived at the original nebula. Having heard the news, Yan Zhaoge was overjoyed, but he did not get carried away. According to the time, The immortal court should have become suspicious and realized that they had lost contact with the frigid Thunder Emperor Wan Mingyan and the others for too long. Their main focus was on exalted fire luminary Suo Mingzhang. However, the disappearance of Wan Mingyan and the others meant that there were others in the original nebula. The greatest possibility was Yen Zhaoge and Mars Halberd. This would naturally attract the attention of the people of the immortal court. Mars Halberd was taking a huge risk by bringing Yen Di and the others back to the original nebula. If it wasn't for the fact that the top experts of the immortal court had gone to chase after Suo Mingzhang, they wouldn't have been able to enter the original nebula. Yen Zhaoge still concealed his aura and traversed within the chaotic primordial space. After several exchanges, he had finally established a rather stable connection with Yen Di, seeking to meet up with him. "You're here." After seeing Yen Di, Yen Zhaoge received them into the shadowy region enveloped by the dim radiant wheel. Other than Yen Di and Mars Halberd, Nie Jingxian had also rushed over. What took Yen Zhaoge a little out of his expectations was the final fifth person. It was a tall and slender woman dressed in a green robe. Her features were picturesque. She stood there, seemingly calm, but she was like a sheathed long sword, radiating sharpness and threatening sharpness. Yen Zhaoge was no stranger to her, just that this was his first time seeing her in person. Proud sword of the god continent, Yu Yi, after the little sword god Long Xueji, he was the most outstanding genius of the prime clear direct lineage. Alongside the sword shaking the nine heavens, He Mian, complementing the world beyond worlds, Kunlun's god-shocking dragon. Youth's eight sex, there was a saying that had spread far and wide in the roving jade heavens over the years. Nine heavens soaring solitary crane, fragrant splendor fills the divine continent. The first half was referring to the current sacred court exalt, He Mian, while the second half was referring to Yu Yi. The two of them were also praised by the roving jade heavens as the peerless duo. Another reason why Yen Zhaoge was familiar with her was that she was the granddaughter of the profound sovereign Gao Qingxian and the Dragon Spring Emperor Long Xingquan, Long Hanhua's cousin and Gao Qing's aunt. The profound sovereign Gao Qingxian and the Spring Emperor Long Xingquan had a total of 3 children. The eldest son, Gao Xuebua. The second was the female dragon, Xuening. The youngest son, Long Xueji. Yu Ye's mother was Gao Qingxian and Long Xingquan's second daughter, Long Xuening. Long Xuening and her husband got married earlier than Long Hanhua, but they gave birth later. As a result, Yu Yi was even younger than Long Hanhua. Not long after giving birth to her, Long Xuening and her husband passed away. Yu Yi was then raised by Long Xingquan and Gao Qingxian. His talent was outstanding, and he quickly rose to fame in roving jade heavens. Everyone praised her for having the profound and vine sovereign's looks. However, Gao Qingxian believed that her granddaughter possessed extraordinary potential. Her potential was comparable to the roving jade heavens #1 sword, Yen Zhaoge's grandmother, the sword Emperor Di Qinglian. The last time Yen Zhaoge had gone to the roving jade heavens, she had been out adventuring and had yet to return. Thus, they had not met. According to Gao Qing and the others, before Yu Yi left the roving jade heavens, she was a late immortal bridge martial saint. Although he was as famous as He Mian, because he was younger, his cultivation level was lower than He Mian, who had already become a supreme martial artist. However, after meeting her today, Yu Yi had already reached the exalt realm and possessed the physique of a human immortal. As the leading figures of the roving jade heavens younger generation, no matter if it was Yu Yi or He Mian, there was no need to doubt their strength. Although she seemed rather ordinary and didn't seem outstanding, Yen Zhaoge, who was familiar with the prime clear sword arts, could vaguely feel that the green-clothed woman was extraordinary. "Senior apprentice Sister Yu, nice to meet you." Yen Zhaoga smiled and cupped his hands. Previously, when I went to the roving Jade Heavens, you happened to be out and couldn't meet me. It's a pity. I didn't expect to see you today. Yu Yi returned the greeting. Junior apprentice brother, Yen, nice to meet you. I heard from Uncle and Qing that you've been to the roving Jade Heavens. I also regret not being there. After greeting him, she looked at Yen Zhaoga and muttered, Human immortal? So fast. Yen Zhaoga and Yen Di looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. However, Yen Zhaoga was more concerned about something else. Father. He looked towards Yen Di with a questioning gaze. Yen Zhaoga's understanding of Yu's strength remained at the level of rumors. However, as long as this senior apprentice sister Yu's strength was on par with He Mian, it would be sufficient. He Mian was indeed defeated by Long Xueji's sword. However, He Mian had just stepped into the Exalt realm, while Long Xueji was about to push open the immortal door. Yen Zhaoga hadn't personally witnessed Yu Yi and He Mian's battle. However, he knew Long Xueji's strength. Yen Zhaoga didn't doubt Yu Ye's strength, but it was a little unexpected. He thought that if Yen Di went to the roving Jade Heavens to look for someone, it would be Long Xueji. Before Senior Mars Halberd came back to contact us, Senior Apprentice Brother Gao had secretly sent a disciple to the world beyond worlds with a piece of news. He arrived right after Senior Mars Halberd explained Yen Di. While you're opening the passageway to the Pill Hall, there seems to be some commotion in the roving Jade Heavens. Previously, the roving Jade Heavens had been paying attention to the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Pill Hall, and had been searching for it. After some of their fellow disciples were lost, they became even more diligent in their search. Previously, when Yen Zhaoga went to the roving Jade Heavens, Gao Qing had mentioned that the prime clear lineage seemed to have found some clues regarding the Pill Hall. From the looks of it now, after the Exalted Fire, Suo Mingzhang had used the method left behind by the Exalted Wood, Xiao Junhuang, to completely open up the passageway to the Pill Hall. The roving Jade Heavens had also been affected. After receiving Senior Mars Halberd's report, I immediately asked that prime clear disciple to report to Senior Apprentice Brother Gao. Yen Di said 5 people. We're short of 1 person, so we asked Senior Apprentice Brother Gao and Senior Apprentice Brother Long to help us. Gao Shuebua and the others were still thinking about his own clan. Naturally, Yen Di wouldn't intentionally avoid them. Of course, Yen Zhaoga had no objections to this. Yen Di's expression turned serious, according to Senior Apprentice Brother Gao. Other than us and the roving Jade Heavens, there might be other people involved. Yen Zhaoga had previously gone to search for the Fire Dragon world, and he knew about it. It's highly possible that it's the demon race that had been hiding for a long time. Therefore, the roving Jade Heavens experts that were coming this time weren't just 1 or 2. The roving Jade Heavens didn't only have the profound sovereign and the Dragon Spring Emperor's lineage. There were also other experts of the prime clear lineage. Indeed, Long Xueji also wanted to take action. However, in order to be safe, he went along with the others of the roving Jade Heavens. The person who came along with Yen Di was Yu Yi, who had just returned from her travels. The situation has become more complicated. However, it's still not too unexpected. Yen Zhaoga stroked his chin and thought. Chapter 1244. The Pill Hall of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace was probably preserved in its entirety. Needless to say, those who were looking for clues would be interested. For now, Yen Zhaoga, who had Xiao Junhuang's inheritance as a foundation, was still in the lead. However, the path left behind by Xiao Junhuang also benefited those who had clues. The roving Jade Heavens and the demon race were the same. From Yen Di's words, Yen Zhaoga knew that the demon race he was talking about wasn't the few that were active in the Tao universe. Instead, He was referring to the great demon experts in the demon universe where the fire dragon world was. Speaking of the demon race, they were actually quite unfamiliar to the people now. Everyone was more familiar with the situation of the demon race's decline. As for the other side of the universe where the demon race lived, their understanding was extremely limited. Therefore, to the martial art practitioners with low cultivation and the majority of the people, the scattered demon race in their own world seemed to be everything. The broad Creed Mountain only got some information from the Astro Sovereign Chen Xuanzong when they were looking for Suo Mingzhang. Yan Zhaoge knew a little more. However, he only came in contact with them for the first time when he was looking for the Fire Dragon world. In the great thousand worlds before the Great Calamity, top-notch great demons were actually very rare. However, they weren't extinct. Yan Zhaoge had learned from some records in the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's martial repository, as well as the rumors spread among the Heavenly Court's people that before the Great Calamity, most of the demon race had been keeping a low profile and recuperating. In fact, in the early ancient times, before and after the investiture of the gods era, the demon race had been flourishing. There were many experts among them. Many of them even joined Taoism or Buddhism, and some even joined the 9 underworlds. However, as time passed, the demon race gradually declined. It seems to have started from the era of the journey to the west. Yan Zhaoge muttered in his heart, in the era before the Great Calamity, there weren't many active top-notch great demons in the world anymore. However, if the demon race didn't suffer any huge losses during the Great Calamity because they kept a low profile, they might have recovered quite a bit after so many years. However, he didn't know what was the situation between them, the Immortal Court, and the Blessed Lands. The demon race might also become the target of enlightenment. The key is how Nuwa Sovereign is doing now. Yan Zhaoge rubbed his temple lightly. The so-called Empress Enviwa was completely different from the ordinary mysterious immortal emperors. Just like the Zhenwu Great Emperor, he was different from the ordinary true immortal great emperors. For true immortals, their emperor titles would usually consist of only 1 or 2 characters. For example, the Dragon Gate Emperor, the Heavenly Fire Emperor, the Thunder Emperor, the Ice Emperor, and so on of pre-Great Calamity times. There was also the Dim Radiant Emperor, the Bright Connection Emperor, the Brocade Emperor, the Heaven Emperor, the Candle Sunlight Emperor, and so on after the Great Calamity. The Zhenwu Great Emperor's title was actually the Zhenwu Demon Rinsing Great Emperor. He was also known as the Sacred True Lord, the Xiantian Emperor, the Demon Rinsing Heavenly Venerate, and so on. One of the 4 Imperials, the Great Emperor of Polaris, was also an abbreviation. His full name was the Heaven-Reaching Polaris Great Emperor of Polaris. Similarly, Empress Wa was naturally not the emperor title of a certain mysterious immortal emperor. Perhaps he could change it to a more common name. Goddess Nuwa. Regarding this existence, Yan Zhaoge had already heard of the myths and legends he had heard countless times. But in this world, there were legendary giants that had truly existed. However, because it was too long ago, there were very few records left. Yan Zhaoge had read through the books of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace. Only then did he know of some limited things. Rumor had it that Empress Enviwa was born before the creation of the world, just like the heavenly primogenitor and the primordial heavenly devil. In addition, all the non-innate born living beings in the world after the creation of the world, except for the demons of the netherworld, were all created by Empress Wa. In the distant primordial era, there was no such division between humans and demons. It was customary to refer to them as the ancient races or the 10,000 ancient races. The human clan was one of the 10,000 clans. Other clans like the Dragon Clan, Fei Clan, Phoenix Clan, and Kuan Peng Clan were also part of the 10,000 clans. It was only when the grand, pure, heavenly Lord of Tao and virtue spread the Tao that the human race rose above the masses and saw greater and greater prosperity. Of course, Taoism's legacies were also open to other races, not just the human race, especially the prime Qing Lingbao Tianzuan, who was known for teaching without discrimination. However, looking back on history, the human race had undoubtedly benefited the most. As time went by, the other 10,000 ancient races besides the human race were gradually called as the demon race by the human race. Demon was basically the title that the human race used to call the living beings other than themselves. However, the demon race rarely called themselves in this way. Besides, the different demon races usually didn't treat each other as the same race. Because of this reason, both the demon race and the human race held the Empress Envihua in high esteem. However, as time went by, and the Empress Envihua didn't appear in the world for a long time, her reputation gradually faded. According to the information that Yan Zhaoge had, the legend about the Empress Envihua finally appeared in the ancient investiture of the gods era. After that, the legend of the Empress Envihua became rarer and rarer. However, as time went by, a lot of historical information had been mixed up and left a lot of mysteries. The existing information couldn't be fully trusted. Yan Zhaoge, who had gone to the Fire Dragon world under the guidance of the Astro Sovereign, couldn't help thinking more at the moment. The demon race's bigwigs are also paying attention to the whereabouts of the exalted fire. As the roving Jade Heaven's senior apprentice Uncle Gao said, the demon race seemed to want to take action after resting for so many years. While many thoughts were running in Yan Zhaoge's mind, his hands didn't stay idle. He put his palms together, and the 5 treasures that were holding the colorful lights in place started vibrating together. The 5 seals started circulating, and the colorful lights were affected by it. The illusory lights became more solid, as if they had turned into a real rainbow bridge. If that's the case, let's not waste any more time. Let's move as soon as possible. Don't waste the opportunity that the exalted wood luminary had worked so hard to get. Yan Zhaoge said to Yan Di and the others. Yan Di, Nie Jingshen, Yu Yi, and Mars Halberd all nodded and stepped on the rainbow bridge with Yan Zhaoge. In the next moment, colorful lights flickered on the rainbow bridge. The eyes of Yan Zhaoge and the others became dazzled, and they instantly passed through layers of space. They directly left the original nebula. The risk of going there this time isn't small, but time waits for no man. We have to take some risks. Yan Zhaoge used the time on the way and said to Yan Di and the others quickly, other than the demon race, we also have to be careful of the heretics. The conflict between the immortal court and the blessed lands had gradually calmed down after a few years. However, if the opponent revealed an obvious flaw, the immortal court and the blessed lands wouldn't miss the chance to deal a heavy blow to the opponent. Currently, the immortal court had focused most of their attention on pursuing the exalted fire, Suo Mingzhang. As for the blessed lands, they noticed the commotion and stared at the immortal court with hostility. However, if they obtained a clear clue about the pill hall like the demon race and the roving jade heavens, they might be able to interfere. The value of the pill hall was undeniable. Other than that, I feel that the pill hall itself is a little weird. We have to be careful. Yan Zhaoge reminded them solemnly. Chapter 1245. There's something strange about the pill hall itself. Nie Jingshen frowned slightly. Yan Zhaoge nodded. I'm not sure what it is currently. However, I'm sure that there's something wrong there. As he said that, he looked towards Yu Yi. The green-clothed lady seemed to be lost in her thoughts. When the other party had accompanied Yan Di and the others over, Yan Zhaoge had already noticed that as this senior apprentice sister of his walked and shifted amid space, her gaze was not focused at all, as she seemed to be daydreaming, contemplating life. It was as if she wasn't immersed in the laws of the heavens and earth, causing her to neglect the matters in front of her. Her interest in the original nebula wasn't any lesser than the pill hall. Only when she was about to meet Yin Zhaoge and entered the dim radiant wheel's shadow did she regain her senses and greeted Yin Zhaoge politely. She wasn't someone who didn't understand etiquette or emotions. However, when she wasn't interacting with others, she would habitually be lost in her thoughts. After greeting Yin Zhaoge, when Yin Zhaoge was talking to Yin Di, she retreated to the side. Her gaze seemed to have become empty again and became unfocused. She seemed to be in a daze. However, her sword intent was still contained, causing others to feel a chill down their spines. It was as if it would be unsheathed at any time. If it wasn't for this, people would really be worried for her, worried that this girl could be abducted at any time. When Yin Zhaoge's gaze landed on her, she felt something, and her gaze regained its focus. She didn't ignore the others' conversation just now. She was immersed in comprehending the Tao and didn't pay attention to it. Everything seemed to be stored by her. After regaining her senses, she immediately put it to good use. Senior apprentice Uncle Tang and the others, as well as the 3 grand clear lineages, disappeared because of the pill hall. Yu Yi nodded and said there might be something fishy there. Yin Di nodded slowly and pondered. Yin Zhaoge had told him about what Yu Yi mentioned in the past. It was when Yin Zhaoge, the roving jade heavens, and the ingenious flying peak fought for the profound sky purple golden furnace. When the situation changed, 6 immortal bridge martial saints disappeared without a trace. They were devoured by the mysterious ritual's power. According to Yin Zhaoge's deduction, the mysterious ritual originated from the pill hall. After understanding the situation, Nye Jingxin and Mars Halbert's expressions turned serious. Did someone beat us to it, or was there an expert from before the Great Calamity who occupied it and used it to escape the Great Calamity? I'm not sure yet. We can only be vigilant and act according to the situation. Yin Zhaoge pondered for a moment before saying, actually, if you ask me, that incident with the profound sky purple gold furnace back then seemed a little like a trap that had been purposefully laid down. Hearing that, everyone looked towards Yin Zhaoge, including Yu Yi. It's like a very primitive form of hunting. Yin Zhaoge said to Yu Yi, please forgive me, senior apprentice sister Yu. I didn't mean to insult the missing seniors. It was merely an example. Yu Yi shook her head. It's fine. I understand. She was slightly lost in thought for a moment before she slowly said, according to Qing Er's description, if junior apprentice Brother Yan's guess is correct, then the other party's target seems to have been martial practitioners with relatively higher cultivation bases. At the very least, he has already ascended the immortal bridge. Yin Zhaoge nodded. That's what I guessed as well. Therefore, it can be seen that the trap is man-made, and not the pill hall's own defensive restrictions. Since the purpose of the trap is to capture and not to kill on the spot, Nye Jingxin went straight to the point and asked, then what is the purpose of the person who set up the trap? Yin Zhaoge didn't answer. After coming into contact with the ice-cold will within the pill hall, he had a guess in his heart. However, he hadn't confirmed it yet. However, he couldn't tell others about this guess, because it involved too many people. Perhaps we should try to find the answer after we arrive there. Countless scenes flashed within Yin Zhaoge's mind. However, he didn't show it on his face, and answered, I hope that the people who were trapped back then are blessed by the heavens. If we go there this time, we might be able to save them. Yu Yi and the others nodded slightly. That's the only way now. The group crossed the Rainbow Bridge and continued forward. At the end of the Rainbow Bridge, the hall finally appeared within Yin Zhaoge's sight once again. From blurry to clear. However, it was different from what he remembered. The hall that was supposed to be flickering with golden radiance, as if it was constructed with white jade, was now black. The closer they got to the hall, the denser the medicinal fragrance became. It made their entire body feel comfortable. However, when Yen Zhaoge and the others got off the Rainbow Bridge, the medicinal fragrance in front of them suddenly turned into clouds of mist, which blocked their way forward. Although we have the help of the Exalted with Luminary's inheritance, we still have to use our brains if we want to enter officially. As Yen Zhaoge walked within the clouds of mist, his vision became blurry, and he couldn't tell the direction. As he walked, Yen Zhaoge felt like he was walking on the same spot. However, the ice-cold will from before didn't appear this time. Not only did Yen Zhaoge not feel relaxed, but he also became even more vigilant. That trap didn't seem like it was only used once. The Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Pill Hall was completely preserved and not in ruins. If we only captured a few immortal bridge martial saints on this basis, isn't it a little overkill? Yen Zhaoge thought. In the human realm, immortal bridge martial saints were already extremely powerful. Other than the Exalt martial saint who stood at the peak of the human realm, immortal bridge martial saints were the strongest existence. In front of human exalts, they might seem weak, but in truth, any one of them could move mountains and fill seas with just a wave of their hand, and cause the heavens and earth to collapse. If they were placed in a lower realm like the Eight Extremities world, the Flame Devil world, or the Floating Life world, they could easily destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. However, that was still relative to the human realm. In the immortal realm above the 9 heavens, humans were still humans at the end of the day. Therefore, Yen Zhaoge speculated that after the person who had set up the trap had succeeded in capturing the 6 immortal bridge martial saints who had been present at the time and then retrieved the profound sky purple gold furnace, his original intention might have been to repeat the same trick and capture even more prey. Never would he have thought that Yen Zhaoge would interrupt him midway, spoiling his plans. That was why the other party had been so furious. The rage and hatred contained within that ice-cold was still fresh in Yen Zhaoge's memory. You should be happy that I walked right into your trap. Yen Zhaoge mocked himself. He looked at the mist that obstructed his path. After pondering for a moment, he raised his finger and wrote in midair. The silhouette left behind a mark in midair, not dissipating as it formed numerous talismans. The talismans intertwined with each other. In the end, they seemed to have transformed into a door, which opened within the mist. Yu Yi, who was previously daydreaming, turned her head around and looked at the door blankly. After being stunned for a while, her gaze regained its focus. Junior apprentice brother Yen, could the profound sky purple gold furnace have fallen into your hands? Chapter 1246. After hearing Yu Ye's question, Yen Zhaoge nodded. Coincidentally, the profound sky purple golden furnace fell into my hands. Due to how important this matter was, I kept it a secret. I even hid it from you guys. Please forgive me, senior apprentice sister. He looked towards Nie Jingshan. Please forgive me, senior apprentice brother Nie. I'm ashamed to say this. An immortal realm treasure is so miraculous. Even after obtaining it, for so many years, I still couldn't utilize it. Senior apprentice uncle, you never returned to the world beyond worlds, while senior apprentice uncle Long and the profound sovereign were always in seclusion. The profound sky purple golden furnace would play a crucial role if you wanted to achieve something in the Pill Hall. Since Yen Zhaoge invited Nie Jingshan, Yu Yi, and Mars Halberd, he didn't intend to hide it from them. Even if Yu Yi didn't guess it, Yen Zhaoge would explain it to them later. With his current cultivation, Yen Zhaoge wasn't too worried about the profound sky purple golden furnace being exposed. In fact, he believed that no matter if it was Gao Shuebua and the others who received Gao Qing's report, or the Brocade Emperor, Fu Yunqi, who received Fu Ting's report, they would more or less suspect that Yan Zhaoge was the one who reaped the benefits in the past. Of course, Yan Zhaoge wouldn't be modest if someone harbored ill intentions towards him. However, he had gone through many considerations in selecting his companions to prevent any internal conflicts from occurring. As expected, Yi only asked. After receiving an affirmative answer, she nodded. If that's the case, our chances have increased. Then, she no longer focused her attention on Yan Zhaoge. Instead, she looked at the surrounding mist again. Her gaze gradually lost its focus, as if she was immersed in experiencing the profundities of this place. Evidently, the disappearance of her fellow disciples originated from the pill hall and had nothing to do with Yan Zhaoge. Naturally, Yu Yi wouldn't vent her anger on him. If Master returns to the world beyond worlds, even if you tell him about the profound sky purple golden furnace, it wouldn't be of much use. Nie Jingshan laughed. Within the jade capital crag, no one is proficient in alchemy. The tranquil, profound, immortal has no problem activating the furnace. The only thing that matters is efficiency. Yan Zhaoge lifted his foot and strode forward. However, let's talk about this after we've settled this matter. It was just that while Yan Di and the others hadn't gained as much as Yan Zhaoge from refining and absorbing the medicinal qi within the seven-colored light earlier, they had still benefited greatly. However, it wasn't that easy to turn it into his own. Other than Yan Di, who also had outstanding attainments in alchemy, being able to use his own body as a furnace to rapidly refine the medicinal qi like Yan Zhaoge, the other three all needed time to accumulate their experience. Time waits for no one, so he could only absorb it for now and slowly plan his next move. Yan Zhaoge was the first to pass through the door amidst the mist, the world before him instantly becoming clear. As Yan Di and the others followed him in, the majestic great hall was already standing before them. The black palace floated alone in the void, and there were no pavilions around it. Waves of black light spread out in all directions, shaking the void and faintly forming a spatial barrier boundary. It was as if an independent world had formed with this hall as the center. It was clearly unrealistic to want to enter this world from the endless void of the universe outside without knowing the gist of it. Arriving in front of the main hall, a desolate and ancient aura assaulted his senses. Ever since the Great Calamity, it has always existed here, floating quietly until now. Is it? Yan Zhaoge glanced at the faint black light. It doesn't look like it was corroded by the 9 underworlds. However, it's different from what I remember. Is it because of the Great Calamity or the pill hall's internal reason? As he was thinking, he turned his head and said to Yan Di and the others, "Let's go in. Our future is uncertain, so be careful. If we get separated, protect yourselves first. Remember what I told you on the way here. Those who enter first will be the first to encounter any traps. There are pros and cons to this," said Yan Zhaoge with a smile. Nie Jingshan smiled indifferently. Yu Yi was still in a daze and looked like she was in a daze. Mars Halberd shook his head. Even so, those who arrive first will still have the advantage. Yan Di also smiled and said, "Since we're already here, let's just take it easy." "Yeah." Yan Zhaoge hesitated for a while and looked at Nie Jingshan. "However, we still have to be extra careful." Nie Jingshan looked back, and Yan Zhaoge said, "We're all rather special. Perhaps we're the prey that they're looking for." Yan Di and the others were deep in thought. Nie Jingshan was a rare earlier heaven nascent form and one of the existences with the best physique. Most of the time, the word one of could be removed. In terms of physique, Yan Zhaoge's physique could be considered as above average. However, after so many years of continuous cultivation and constantly changing his physique might be the strongest human martial art practitioner's physique in history. To exaggerate, even Goddess Nuwa, the creator of the ancient era, might be surprised if she saw him. She wouldn't expect a human with such a strong physique to appear in the race she created. Yen Di's situation was similar to his, but not as exaggerated. Although Mars' halberd was a weapon, the soul sealed within belonged to the expert Yi Yang. He was a true, immortal emperor who had pushed open the immortal door. Although he had transformed into Mars' halberd, he was still a leakless, immortal artifact. According to the information everyone had, he might be the first immortal realm expert to get close to the pill hall after the incident. In other words, he was the highest level of prey that the hunter who set up the trap had encountered so far. Yen Zhaoga's understanding of Yi was limited. However, when Yen Di contacted the roving Jade Heavens to look for helpers, Gao Xuebua, Long Xueji, and the others had sent Yi over. After hearing it from Yen Di, Yen Zhaoga had a rough idea. His senior apprentice sister, who seemed to be absent from work, had her nature as such. She was passionate about martial arts and didn't care much about other matters. Her style was similar to the exalted fire, Suo Mingzhang and Sikong Qin. On the other hand, her earlier heaven divine soul was different from others. After counting them, the 5 of them each had their own specialties in different aspects. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Everyone looked at each other and revealed a smile. They didn't look down on him, but they weren't afraid either. You can also say that you can't catch the wolf without sacrificing the child. Yen Zhaoga chuckled and retracted his gaze from Nie Jingshan. Actually, he was most worried about Nie Jingshan. If his guess was correct, Nie Jingshan would be the easiest target. Only, it wasn't easy to explain his guess. Therefore, it wasn't convenient to remind Nie Jingshan alone. Instead, he brought all 5 of them together, which served as a warning. As everyone was talking, they had already arrived at the pill hall's main entrance. Yen Zhaoga and Yen Di looked at each other. Then they extended their hands and pushed the heaven-like door in front of them. The seemingly heavy door seemed to have no weight at all. Without any sound, it opened to the 2 sides. In front of Yen Zhaoga, there was only darkness. As he walked in, he suddenly felt the space around him changing. When the light returned to his eyes, Yen Zhaoga looked around and realized that he was the only one left. Chapter 1247. In front of him, there seemed to be a pill room. Yen Zhaoga could even see a pill furnace within his line of sight. Many years had passed since the Great Calamity. Under normal circumstances, treasures without an owner would have their spirit qi dissipate due to the erosion of time. In the end, they would return to the earth like ordinary objects. However, although the pill furnace in front of Yen Zhaoga had not been used for many years, the spirit qi within was still present. Any pill furnace in the pill hall in the past would be a supreme treasure now. Yen Zhaoga didn't hold back and kept the pill furnace. As for the other 4 missing, Yen Zhaoga wasn't worried at all. When he was shifting space just now, Yen Zhaoga had already figured out that this was the pill hall's miraculous nature, and not some special trap. This change might be caused by the opponent using the miraculous nature of the pill hall to shift space, which caused Yen Zhaoga and the others to be separated. However, that was all. This made Yen Zhaoga realize the opponent's weakness. It's not appropriate to say that he's weak. Yen Zhaoga touched his chin. He seems to be busy with other things and can't be distracted, so he could only break us up and slow us down to buy some time for himself. Previously exalted fire, Suo Mingzhang seemed to have brought pressure to the opponent. In order to deal with the pressure brought by Suo Mingzhang, the opponent was also planning something. Which step has he reached? Yen Zhaoga pushed open the door of the pill room while thinking and walked out. In front of him was a dim, long corridor. It was dim, as if it was the depths of the universe. under the shroud of the thick medicinal fragrance. Yen Zhaoge's perception towards the void further away was blocked to a certain extent. His perception was isolated within a certain range. Yen Zhaoge's expression was calm. He looked to the left, then to the right. After randomly choosing a direction, he walked out. Walking in this long corridor was like walking in the boundless void of the universe. However, not a single starlight could be seen. On the two sides of the long corridor, there were no doors or courtyards of other pill rooms. Yen Zhaoge looked back and saw the door of the pill room he came out from had already disappeared. That place seemed to be an independent space-time world, floating in the endless void. This place is like a brand new universe. There are layers upon layers of space-time in the universe, and worlds coexist. Yen Zhaoge said, thoughtfully, "It's like the original nebula, but more developed than the original nebula. It's closer to a brand new universe." In his previous life, he had only seen the exterior of the pill hall from afar, and had never entered it. However, within the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's library repository, there was information regarding the pill hall, which was also an important place in the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace. Moreover, Yen Zhaoge had heard rumors about the pill hall. He had a rough understanding of this place, and wasn't completely clueless about it. Here, after recalling for a moment, Yen Zhaoge once again reached out to write numerous talismans in midair. The talismans that flickered with a faint, golden light seemed to have come to life. Then, these golden talismans spat out streams of purple qi, as if they had transformed into a purple mist in the air. As the purple fog shook, a clear path vaguely appeared before Yen Zhaoge's eyes. Stepping onto this path that flickered with golden light, Yen Zhaoge strode forward. However, with every step he took, he felt as if he was crossing a world. When he reached the end of the path, he finally saw a new door. Yen Zhaoge tried to open the door, but the door didn't budge at all. "This is the place." Seeing this, Yen Zhaoge's heart calmed down, and he nodded. After observing the surroundings for a moment, he opened his palm. Thousands of golden lights lit up, and endless purple qi rose. A three-legged big furnace appeared in his hand. Yen Zhaoge let go of his hand, and the three-legged big furnace's shape began to change. It looked even more mystical. It seemed to be infinitely huge and filled up the entire heaven and earth. However, it also seemed extremely small and looked like a speck of dust. It was the profound sky purple golden furnace. Within the pill hall's internal universe, the profound sky purple golden furnace that had been silent all this while started vibrating. From the surrounding space, rays of golden lights vaguely extended and penetrated into the huge furnace. The profound sky purple golden furnace was steaming as if it had just woken up from a deep slumber. A strong aura was constantly flowing out from it. It wasn't a majestic power, but it displayed a profound concept. Yen Zhaoge tried to figure out the theory behind it. He felt that in some aspects, even the veteran profound immortal experts like the Astro Sovereign and the Concealed Sovereign seemed to be inferior to it. After becoming a human immortal, Yen Zhaoge could barely touch this powerful furnace that originated from the immortal realm. However, at this moment, the profound sky purple golden furnace's spirituality seemed to have awakened. After it was about to be fully activated, Yen Zhaoge felt that he couldn't control it anymore. This was within Yen Zhaoge's expectations. So when it really happened, he didn't feel depressed. He formed a seal with one hand and placed it in front of his chest. His other hand pushed forward and pressed on the profound sky purple golden furnace. The huge furnace started approaching the door that was sealed and hard to open. As the profound sky purple golden furnace got closer, the door that didn't move at all finally moved. As the two's aura interacted, the size of the furnace started shrinking. In the end, it became the size of a seal. It was like an identification, and also like an agreement. When Yen Zhaoge pushed the profound sky-purple golden furnace onto the door, a creaking sound seemed to resound in the entire universe. Then, the sealed door finally opened, and opened to both sides. Yen Zhaoge strode inside, and the door immediately closed behind him. In front of him was a field of brilliant lights, as if he was within the sea of stars. Yen Zhaoge looked around. It was still a vast void in front of him. However, there were many clumps of lights in the void now. Those clumps of lights were like the stars in the sky. They quietly rotated within the void. Every stream of light had its own trajectory and rules. This should be the central area of the pill hall, right? Yen Zhaoge nodded slightly. The pill hall was an important place of the heavenly court's divine palace. It had its own universe within. Each independent world was like a pill room, coexisting within the space of the pill hall's universe. Anyone from the heavenly court who entered the pill hall would be received. Then they would be guided to the place they wanted to go, or they would be given a pill room to use. The place where Yen Zhaoge was currently at was the central area used for guidance. Although it wasn't the most important central area of the pill hall, it was equivalent to the entrance. After arriving here, it would be much easier to go to other places. The key was that there were rules to follow. It wouldn't be like walking in the dark anymore. As expected, it's the same as the rumors. Yen Zhaoge focused his gaze and saw the streams of radiance circulating within the void. Some of the streams of radiance seemed to be mixed with impurities. That was actually showing the other people who entered the pill hall. What Yen Zhaoge was more concerned about was that there were a few areas where the radiance was dim, as if it was covered by a layer of black fog. Chapter 1248. There were shadows in the central control area. One could imagine that the problems in those areas wouldn't be small. Yen Zhaoge roughly identified them and realized that they were all the vital areas of the pill hall: the core control area of the hall, the core pill room, the pill storage, the medicine storage. These vital areas were all shrouded in shadows. If the central control area was compared to the front desk or the hall, it would be the main control room. What was worth mentioning was that there were a large amount of precious pill recipes stored here. It was even more complete than the records in the Marshall Repository. Some pill recipes weren't even preserved in the Marshall Repository and could only be found here. The core pill room was the largest and had the best environment among all the silent rooms used to refine pills. In the past, including the profound sky-purple golden furnace, most of the top-notch pill refinement furnaces of the Heavenly Court's divine palace were placed there. There were only a few people in the entire Heavenly Court who were qualified to use the core pill room to refine pills. From a certain perspective, the pill storage was the most attractive place, because it stored a large amount of refined divine pills and treasured pills that weren't brought out by others. The pill hall wasn't destroyed during the Great Calamity. If nothing unexpected happened, the pill storage should be relatively intact. As for the medicine storage, it stored all sorts of treasures, spirit grasses, and spirit medicines that were prepared to be used to refine pills. In terms of value, it wasn't much inferior to the pill storage. Yen Zhaoge scanned his surroundings and paid attention to the spots that seemed to contain impurities within the streams of lights. These represented Yen D and the others who entered the pill hall. They weren't like Yen Zhaoge, who could find his path in the pill hall. Therefore, they seemed to be stagnant. If one didn't know how to walk within the pill hall's cosmic void, it was no different from walking on the spot. Only bigwig experts whose cultivation had reached a certain level could ignore part of the rules and walk freely. However, Yen Zhaoge and the others' cultivation had yet to reach the level where they could suppress others with their aura. Unfortunately, I can't only open a part of the restrictions. I have to open all of them if I want to. Yen Zhaoge smacked his lips regretfully. If someone else enters from behind, they wouldn't be obstructed anymore. Yen Zhaoge naturally wouldn't give up the advantage of being the first to enter. Then, he started writing in the air. One seal after another froze in the air before transforming into a beautiful and profound scripture. Yen Zhaoge summoned the profound sky-purple gold furnace once more, stamping it like he was signing his name. Then, the mysterious runes flew up into the sky and disappeared into the starry void. In the next moment, the light streams that were like the stars in the sky all trembled, and then all turned blue. The speed at which the balls of light flowed had clearly slowed down, no longer forming a continuous stream of light. Instead, the balls of light were slowly moving in a certain pattern, clearly distinguishable. Then, the impurities in the ball of light gradually became clear, as if they were human figures. However, the images were still very blurry, and he couldn't tell who was who. However, the movements of those figures had clearly become much more natural. They began to search for their own paths, instead of staying where they were. I'm still not familiar with this place. If I could study it for a few more days, I would be able to control this place more deeply. At that time, it would also be a simple matter to directly contact Father and the others. Sadly, time waits for no man. Yen Zhaoge thought as he observed. At the same time, he vaguely felt that someone was interfering with him, causing him to be unable to control this place better. Thinking about it, it should be the opponent who used the profound sky-purple gold furnace to set up the trap. Yen Zhaoge's figure shook. As if his clone had turned into a shadow, another person suddenly appeared beside him. It was his North Ocean clone. The North Ocean clone had already returned to his human form. After appearing, he raised his head and looked at the starry sky in front of him. After leaving his clone here, Yen Zhaoge himself left this place and continued his journey. Currently, he had already understood most of the patterns of the changes within the pill hall, as well as the various paths. Now, he was going to explore those shadowy areas. His opponent seemed to be busy with other matters and couldn't be bothered to stop them from entering. Of course, this was a good start. However, on the other hand, Yen Zhaoge and the others wouldn't have a good time if he really got what he wanted. It would be best if he could stop his opponent's actions midway. Yen Zhaoge walked alone for a while. After passing through layers of void, his footsteps gradually slowed down. According to his memory, he was already approaching a shadowy area according to the pill hall's internal structure. He hadn't reached the important areas yet. It belonged to the outer area and was near the pill storage. After arriving at the shadowy area, Yen Zhaoge's heart moved slightly, such a strong suppression. There seemed to be an invisible force suppressing the circulation of Yen Zhaoge's true essence. Yen Zhaoge silently circulated his profound art and got rid of this influence. However, he also became more cautious. If he were to fight with someone here, the consumption would be much higher than outside. The medicinal fragrance in this area is also fading. His nose twitched, and he felt that this place was unusual. While walking in the dark void and feeling the invisible force, Yen Zhaoge's expression didn't change. As he was vigilant of his surroundings, he stopped his footsteps. He found a door in the void and opened it. This was a quiet room used for alchemy. After opening the door, Yen Zhaoge's pupils suddenly shrunk. There was a figure inside the room, a person who had already died. Yen Zhaoge's first reaction was to raise his alertness to the highest. He was on full alert and checked the quiet room inside and out. After confirming that there was no other living person other than himself, he walked in and came to the side of the person who had died. This was a lean and handsome old man. He had white hair and a youthful face, and didn't look old at all. His eyes were closed, and his expression was peaceful, as if he was sleeping. Yen Zhaoge had seen him before. At that time, he didn't know his exact identity, but he did later on. World beyond worlds, Kunlun Mountain's ingenious flying peak, of the grand clear lineage, Brocade Emperor Fu Yunqi's senior apprentice brother, ninth-level martial saint, late immortal bridge martial saint, broad clear old man, Ran Chi in the past. He had been one of the famous experts in the world beyond worlds. Back then, he had led the team to participate in the fight for the profound sky purple golden furnace. In the end, he had fallen into a trap and disappeared together with 2 other immortal bridge martial saint experts and 3 prime clear lineage experts. After so many years, his whereabouts were still unknown. From the looks of it now, he had already perished. After mourning for a while, Yen Zhaoge said softly, "I'm sorry." He extended his palm and placed it on Ran Chi's wrist. Although Ran Chi no longer had a pulse, Yen Zhaoge's true essence still entered his body. Almost immediately, he felt a miraculous power contained within Ran Chi's body. This power wasn't dangerous. It was just that because of Yen Zhaoge's touch, it was going out of control and might cause damage within Ran Chi's body. Yen Zhaoge's expression didn't change, as he immediately suppressed it. He has already died for so many years. The reason why his body hasn't decayed is not because the chi and blood of an immortal bridge martial saint is strong. On the contrary, it is because of the maintenance of this power. The inside of his body has long since been in tatters. It wasn't that his body had been decayed. Instead, every single bit of existence within his body, including his flesh, blood, bones, meridians, internal organs, and even his blood vessels that were thinner than a strand of hair, had all been destroyed. The old man before him was like a statue of sand. If not for the maintenance of the power within his body, he would probably have long since been reduced to dust. With Yen Zhaoge's light touch just now, that power had lost its balance. If he hadn't suppressed it in time, the old man's corpse would have shattered as well. And in that instant of contact, Yen Zhaoge felt that icy cold intent once more. Chapter 1249. Maybe it was because Yen Zhaoge was currently within the pill hall. This time, he felt that ice-cold intent again. It was both more real and clearer. Ripples suddenly arose within Yen Zhaoge's heart that was calm and without ripples, as though someone had thrown a stone into the water. An image was vaguely reflected on the water surface. It resembled a pair of eyes currently staring coldly at Yen Zhaoge. It wasn't as wild and fiery as before, but all the resentment and anger had condensed into an even harsher coldness that made one's heart palpitate. Yen Zhaoge's heart was calm as he met that pair of indistinct eyes. After a while, the pair of eyes disappeared, and the ice-cold intent also retreated. Yen Zhaoge's mood did not relax because of this. He's about to succeed. Yen Zhaoge felt something, a rather strange expression on his face as he straightened his body, after a while letting out a long breath. Swiveling his head to look at the corpse of old man Guangqing, Ran Chi, Yen Zhaoge silently bowed, keeping his corpse before leaving this secluded room. "I'm afraid that the other 5 are already dead." As Yen Zhaoge thought about this, he continued exploring the area before him that was enveloped by shadows. In the following exploration, he found the remains of the other people in the pill rooms one after another. Tang Xianfeng, L.V. Jibois, Yen Zhaoge thought. The former was a longtime elder of the roving Jade Heavens, the personal disciple of the profound sovereign, Gao Qingxian. He was of the same generation as Gao Xuebua and his brother. The latter was Gao Xuebua's direct disciple. Both of them had fallen into a trap and vanished while fighting for the profound sky-violet gold furnace with Ran Chi and the other grand, clear experts. Now, both of them had the same outcome. They had fallen within the pill hall. Their bodies were the same as Ran Chi's. They looked fine on the outside, but their insides were as fragile as sand sculptures. What Yen Zhaoge was concerned about was that the degree of damage done to the insides of the bodies of different people was clearly different. At first, it was extremely rough, but later it became more and more exquisite. He was like a butcher who went from being unfamiliar to being skilled, and finally became a butcher who could dismember an ox with ease. Yen Zhaoge muttered to himself, "I'm afraid I guessed right." This area was already close to the pill storage. After inspecting the surroundings once, Yen Zhaoge headed towards the pill storage. He was more cautious, but he was also more expectant. The people who had been captured were all in the quiet alchemy rooms nearby. It was very likely that the other party was also in this area. This was especially true for the pill storehouse, where the possibility was the highest. Hence, it was especially dangerous. However, this was the crucial moment of the other party's plan. If he could find it earlier, he might be able to interrupt the other party's plan. Otherwise, it would be extremely difficult to deal with the other party once they were done with their plan and had succeeded. In the dark, starry sky of the universe, it was empty, as if there was no concept of distance. After walking for a moment, Yen Zhaoge halted, raising his hand to write some runes in midair. The radiance of the runes flickered in the void, from near to far. In the end, the radiance condensed in the distance, illuminating the void. There seemed to be a huge orb there, surrounded by incantations. They were like ribbons connected from head to tail, circling around the orb. It was as if the orb had been quietly existing in the dark void all this time, but it had been ignored by people. However, if one didn't use a special technique to activate it, one would never find anything even if one searched the void thousands of times. The orb was transparent, and a golden mist was rising from it. It was impossible to see what it looked like. That was the important place of the pill hall, the pill storehouse used to store completed divine pills. In the past, when people came to the pill hall to refine pills in the heavenly court's divine palace, most of them would be brought out of the pill hall by themselves after they finished refining. However, a portion of them would be left behind and stored here temporarily. The place where they were stored was this pill storehouse. However, if one wanted to enter the pill warehouse, it was naturally not something that just anyone could enter. As Yen Zhaoge got closer, it looked like an orb from afar. However, when he got closer, it was extremely huge, like a star. The profound sky purple golden furnace floated out. Yen Zhaoge pressed his palm on top of the furnace and pushed it forward, touching the surface of the pill storehouse. The three-legged furnace shone with golden radiance and slowly merged with the star in front of him. After that, the perfectly round star suddenly rotated and transformed into a semicircle, while the other side was a flat surface. The profound sky purple golden furnace stood quietly in the middle of the flat surface that resembled a lake. Yen Zhaoge didn't touch the furnace, but descended towards the lake's surface. This time, his body wasn't obstructed. He successfully passed through the light screen that resembled a water surface and entered the semicircle. As soon as he entered, a medicinal fragrance assaulted his nostrils. It was so dense that it almost suffocated him. In Yen Zhaoge's sight, other than the ground beneath his feet, the top of his head and his surroundings were all shrouded by purple mist. Amidst the sea of clouds, golden light faintly seeped out. Following the direction of the golden light, one could see many small golden pagodas. Under normal circumstances, all kinds of divine pills and miraculous medicines would be categorized and stored within these pagodas. Yen Zhaoge's attention wasn't placed on those small golden pagodas. Instead, he carefully inspected the entire pill storehouse. After inspecting the entire place, Yen Zhaoge could confirm that his opponent wasn't here. Only then did he have the mood to inspect those small golden pagodas. there were all kinds of divine pills. When he had obtained the profound sky purple golden furnace, those scattered divine pills were nothing compared to the scene in front of him. Not only were there many types of pills here, but there were also many of them. The encompassing abundance golden pill. If mortals consumed it, their lifespan would be prolonged, their youth eternal. Heavenly perception would be unlocked, and they would be able to hear the decrees of the heavenly court. Those on the brink of death would immediately revive, and the dead would be revived. If martial practitioners consumed it, they would be able to communicate with the 9 heavens beyond. Even those who had yet to push open the door to immortality would be able to receive the purest and most miraculous immortal chi from beyond the heavens into their bodies. While they wouldn't be able to refine it, they would still be able to benefit greatly. The purple chi golden jade pill. If consumed, one would be able to obtain purple flesh and golden bones. They would be impervious to fire and water and hard to harm. It was especially beneficial for martial practitioners who cultivated in external cultivation techniques. The Heavenly Lotus 9 heart pill. If consumed, 9 orifices would be opened. 9 divinities would be contained in one's soul. One would be extraordinarily spirited and have a feeling of connecting to the heavens. It would allow one's consciousness and comprehension to improve. The specific effects would vary from person to person. Other than that, there were also the myriad wondrous flying star pill, the sacred sky pill, the clear light longevity pill, the bearing essence grand pill, the wind thunder fortune pill, the 9 heavenly dew pill, the divine aura pill, the 16 profound dark pill. Divine pills that were hard to find in the human realm and rare in the heavens could be found here. To put it bluntly, as long as he emptied this place, Yin Zhaoge wouldn't have come here in vain. However, compared to what I expected, there's only less than half of it. Yin Zhaoge narrowed his eyes. The portion that was missing wasn't wasted due to the passage of time. Instead, it was more like someone had taken it away before him. If it's not at the pill storage, then the medicine storage? Yin Zhaoge pondered. The core pill room? Or did it return to the core hub? As he pondered, Yin Zhaoge swept through the pills here. However, his expression soon changed slightly. Through the North Ocean clone at the control hub, he had already sensed that someone else was approaching the pill storage. Mobile users, please browse M. Read for a better reading experience. Chapter 1250. The people approaching the pill warehouse were not Yen Di and the others. Through the North Ocean clone, Yin Zhaoge already knew that someone else had entered the pill hall after them. Although he wasn't sure if they were demons or people from the roving Jade Heavens, there were quite a few of them. One of them, perhaps because of his good luck or because he had other clues, managed to find the vicinity of the pill storehouse without going through the central control center. As compared to Yin Zhaoge, who was rummaging through the ground, the other party's speed was undoubtedly much faster. After approaching the surroundings of the pill warehouse, the North Ocean clone was unable to continue observing because he had entered the shadowy region. At this moment, Yin Zhaoge could vaguely feel that someone had already arrived outside the pill storage. Then, in the next moment, that person activated the profound sky purple golden furnace. While Yin Zhaoge was still unable to completely control the profound sky purple gold furnace, their telepathic connection was still somewhat strong. At this moment, he immediately sensed that someone else was touching the furnace and trying to move it away. Being in the pill storage, Yin Zhaoge could also feel that the boundaries here were shaking nonstop. For a moment, he felt as if the heavens and earth were spinning. Ha! Yin Zhaoge laughed coldly, his figure rapidly rising upwards. As if he was floating on the surface of the water, he passed through the screen of light and arrived outside the pill storehouse. However, just as he revealed his head, a crimson sword light suddenly flashed before his eyes, arriving before him in an instant. Immortal trapping sword. Yen Zhaoga's figure shook, red light surging within it as well. The same celestial trapping sword's sword light clashed, allowing him to evade his opponent's attack. Looking over, he saw a young man standing beside the profound sky purple golden cauldron in the air. He was dressed in a Taoist robe, but his hair was loose and not tied into a bun. This youth's sharp gaze had originally been fixated on the profound sky purple gold furnace. Now, he turned to look at Yen Zhaoga. He Mian, he Ju Xiao? Yen Zhaoga chuckled. I don't really like the way you greet me. This young man in a Taoist robe with disheveled hair was one of the few geniuses among the younger generation of the roving Jade Heavens, the supreme of the Holy Court, sword-shaking 9 heavens he Mian. Together with Yu Yi, he was known as the roving Jade Heavens' unparalleled duo. After the little sword god Long Xueji, they were the most outstanding martial art practitioners of the prime clear lineage. He Mian was younger than Long Xueji and older than Yu Yi. In the recent 100 over years after Long Xueji had become famous in the world beyond worlds that year, the next supreme figure to emerge was the heavenly young master Chen Qianhua, followed by the shocking god sword Nie Jingshan. In the roving Jade Heavens, the most outstanding figure after Long Xueji was He Mian, who dominated over his peers. It was only after Yu Ye's appearance that the two became equally famous. In terms of age, He Mian was about the same age as Chen Qianhua. Counting with one's fingers, He Mian had been in the supreme martial artist realm for quite some time. After Long Xueji had ascended to immortality, there was a rumor in the roving Jade Heavens that He Mian might have already surpassed Gao Xuebua and become the #1 martial saint of the roving Jade Heavens. His master was the Valley Master of Ashen Spirit Valley, Emperor Yun, also known as the Cloud Conquest Emperor. Thousands of years ago, he was on the same level as the profound sovereign Gao Qingxian among the roving Jade Seven, who established the roving Jade Heavens. He was one of the two that remained. In terms of age and experience, she was even older than Yen Zhaoga's grandmother, Di Qinglian, although he was still a leakless true immortal and had yet to undergo the pure profound tribulation. Yen Zhaoga vaguely guessed that it might not be impossible. Instead, it was because the Cloud Emperor had other considerations. He Mian was the Cloud Conquest Emperor's last disciple. He was praised for his achievements in the martial saint realm. He had already surpassed his master and surpassed his master. After ascending to the Exalt realm and becoming a human immortal, rumors had it that He Mian had only lost once against martial saint realm opponents. That was when he lost to Long Xueji. However, Long Xueji had already ascended to the Exalt realm for a long time, while He Mian had just ascended to the human immortal realm. Long Xueji himself also thought that his battle with He Mian was the most difficult battle he had ever fought against someone in the same realm. Everyone thought that He Mian had lost with honor. However, from how He Mian kept the title of 8 Heavens Exalt, that sounded like a joke. One could imagine that he didn't feel honored at all. He even planned to compete against Long Xueji again in the future. Although Long Xueji had ascended to the immortal realm, He Mian still had the chance to wash away his shame. World beyond world's fallen deity, Yen Zhaoga. Although it was their first time meeting, He Mian still recognized Yen Zhaoga. Crimson lights were faintly flickering within his eyes. The profound sky purple golden furnace had fallen into your hands back then. It was a coincidence. Yen Zhaoga said calmly, I feel sorry for what happened to Elder Tang, and the other 2, as well as the 3 from Ingenious Flying Peak. He Mian said, I feel sorry for it too. Fortunately, I have the chance to make up for it now. He extended his hand and grabbed the profound sky purple golden furnace. Then he lifted it up. Yen Zhaoga acted as if he didn't see anything. He only said plainly, let's not talk about the demon race interfering. Just this pill hall itself is weird. It's not that easy to deal with. Your Ashen Spirit Valley lineage has always been on bad terms with the profound sovereign and senior apprentice Uncle Long. It's normal for you to dislike me. However, don't you think it's too early to start an internal conflict now? Himian shook his head. Layman Yen, you've misunderstood. I'm happy to see your family causing chaos in the world beyond worlds. The more chaotic, the better. That's why I don't have any enmity towards you. At least, not currently. I don't plan on interfering with the other matters here. I came here for this profound sky purple golden furnace. It's enough for me to obtain it. I'll leave now, and I won't be greedy for anything else. Within his deep eyes, a crimson glow was faintly discernible and drifting about. It's a pity that I met you. When Yen Zhaoga was in the 9th level of the Martial Saint realm, in the late Immortal Bridge realm, he shocked the heavens in the world beyond worlds. He defeated the black-clothed Brocade Emperor and killed the Earth Exalt Wang Zhengcheng, who possessed the Yin-Yang Earth Mountain River diagram. While he shocked the world beyond worlds, he also shocked the entire Tao universe, including the roving Jade Heavens. The middle and lower level martial art practitioners might not know about it. However, as one of the top 10 experts in the roving Jade Heavens, the Exalt Martial Saint He Mian must have heard about it. He Mian wasn't afraid of the Brocade Emperor, who didn't possess the Four Grands earlier heaven flag, or the Earth Exalt Wang Zhengcheng, who possessed the Yin-Yang Earth Mountain River diagram. However, when he met Yen Zhaoga face to face, he could tell that the Yen Zhaoga in front of him was no longer in the Martial Saint 9th level, the late Immortal Bridge realm. Instead, Yen Zhaoga was the same as him. All of his acupoints were in the Seeing Divinity realm, and he had the body of a human immortal with a complete internal universe. He was in the Exalt realm. He felt that it was unbelievable for Yen Zhaoga to reach the Martial Saint 10th level in such a short period of time. However, the truth was right in front of him. Without a doubt, the current Yen Zhaoga was much stronger than when he defeated the black-clothed Brocade Emperor and killed Wang Zhengcheng. However, He Mian didn't waver. As he looked at Yen Zhaoga, the crimson glow in his eyes became sharper and sharper. I'm not joking. I'll say it sincerely. Yen Zhaoga spread his palms and smiled. It's better for you to look for a chance to reap the benefits when I'm fighting with someone else. He Mian's sword intent became stronger and stronger. Facing an Exalt like you, yet you flee. You don't even have the courage to fight. I can only kill myself by breaking my sword. I've heard of Layman Yan's name for a long time. Previously, when you came to the roving Jade Heavens, we didn't have the chance to meet. Today, I'll make up for it and experience your strength. Yen Zhaoga lifted his eyelids slightly and looked at He Mian. He nodded as if nothing had happened. Oh. In the next instant, a red light appeared. Yen Zhaoga instantly arrived beside He Mian and the profound sky purple golden furnace. Chapter 1251. Never seen each other before? Not necessarily. Yen Zhaoga instantly arrived in front of He Mian. Previously, when I left the words on your disciple's back, it was for you and your master, the Cloud Emperor. Didn't we already see each other then? Only it wasn't as close as now. As he was speaking, Yen Zhaoga grabbed the profound sky purple golden furnace and stopped He Mian's retreating figure. We've never fought before. Of course, it's fate. He Mian's eyes glowed with gold, and crimson lights flew out from his pupils. As if there was no time gap, the crimson red sword light instantly arrived in front of Yen Zhaoga. When He Mian's sword was unleashed, the sword lights were endless. Each of his swords was faster than the previous one. In every corner of the void, red lights were flashing and dancing around. Tens of millions of sword lights were slashing towards Yen Zhaoga at the same time. A high-grade sacred artifact is useless to you now. However, If it's a sword that you've personally refined, it's more or less better than fighting barehanded. Yan Zhaoge said calmly, "Draw your sword. I'm not underestimating you by fighting barehanded against you." He grabbed the profound sky purple golden furnace with one hand and raised his other hand. Then he punched forward calmly. In an instant, Yan Zhaoge's fists filled every corner of the void universe. Whenever a crimson red sword light lit up, an iron fist would land and extinguish the sword light. When countless sword lights lit up, countless fists would land. Before the sword lights could even shine, they would be extinguished. Before it even started, the end was already in sight. He Mion's attainment in the immortal trapping sword scripture was already extremely high. Wherever his sword light went, no matter when or where his opponent was, he wouldn't be able to escape. No matter how fast his opponent was, he wouldn't be able to avoid it. However, Yan Zhaoge's fists would always arrive first. It was as if they were waiting there for He Mion's sword light to appear. Then, before it could fully activate, Yan Zhaoge's sword light would shatter it with one punch. The immortal trapping sword ignored the limitations of space and surpassed time. Nothing could be faster than it. However, Yan Zhaoge's fists seemed to have blurred the concept of time. It was as if it existed before the beginning of time and space, but also as if it was the end of all time and space, waiting for the exhausted. At this moment, He Mion felt as if he had just pulled out his sword from its scabbard, and when he was halfway there, someone had punched the hilt of his sword. The sword that had just been pulled out halfway was smashed back into the scabbard again, cutting through time and space. The fastest sword in the world that could no longer be defined as fast or slow was actually beaten to the point that it couldn't be pulled out. Primordial 5 manifestations. Tai! He Mion groaned, and the red glow in his eyes intensified. He finally released the profound sky purple golden furnace. However, he had no intention of retreating. The young man with disheveled hair in a Taoist robe spun in the air. Among the scarlet sword light that filled the sky, there was a faint green glow. Green and red sword lights flickered within the void, finally evading Yan Zhaoge's Tai fist. Other than the celestial trapping sword manual, He Mion also cultivated the celestial slaying sword manual, the head of the 4 swords of numinous treasure. The immortal slaying sword could destroy all techniques with one sword and destroy all Daos in the world. Although it couldn't destroy Yan Zhaoge's Tai fist, the green glow blocked Yan Zhaoge's fist intent, causing the river of time to reappear. As the river surged, rays of red lights flew everywhere. It was like a flood dragon returning to the sea or a tiger returning to the mountains. It was finally released. Great! Not only did you cultivate the immortal exterminating sword, you can even use both the immortal exterminating sword and the immortal trapping sword at the same time. As expected, you live up to your reputation. Yan Zhaoge praised. The prime clear immortal exterminating sword and the jade clear heaven opening scripture weren't easy to cultivate. If a martial art practitioner's comprehension wasn't enough, not only would they not be able to cultivate it, their soul might even be torn apart, which would endanger their lives. He Mion had successfully cultivated the immortal exterminating sword, and he could even use both the immortal exterminating sword and the immortal trapping sword at the same time. Just this move alone was worthy of his title as a heaven's favored. There wasn't any expression of pride on his face. Instead, it was filled with solemnity and concentration. As the sword seal was activated, countless scarlet-red sword lights appeared everywhere. As they intersected with each other, they gathered together and connected into a huge sword formation. When the sword formation appeared, it had already trapped Yan Zhaoge within. When the entire sword formation was activated, it instantly destroyed the space within the pill hall's internal cosmos into nothingness. I've long heard that the Ashen Spirit Valley's lineage combines sword arts and formation arts. It's filled with endless profundities. Now that I've seen it, it truly lives up to its reputation. Yen Zhaoge's voice resounded. After that, a terrifying power that couldn't be resisted exploded from within the scarlet-red sword formation. 12 light wheels were circling behind Yen Zhaoge's back. As he punched out, the dim, radiant, chaotic light shook. The gloomy darkness disappeared, and only endless radiance remained. After that, the radiance shattered, and the great Tao collapsed. An extremely ferocious, great shattering brightness fist exploded from within. The horrifying power swept outwards and blocked He Mian's sword formation's encirclement. In the end, the entire sword formation was shattered. Yen Zhaoge's fist was neither fast nor slow. It didn't move nor waver as it went towards He Mian. He Mian's gaze was extremely solemn. His left hand formed a sword seal and placed it in front of his chest. His right hand's index and middle fingers formed a sword and pointed forward. As the red lights flickered, the green lights appeared once again. Other than that, there were also rays of black sword chi entangling around it like silk threads. Immortal slaughtering sword. Among the numinous treasure four swords, not only did He Mian cultivate the immortal exterminating sword and the immortal trapping sword, he even cultivated the immortal slaughtering sword. Moreover, not only could he unleash two swords at the same time, he could even unleash three swords at the same time. The three swords, exterminating, slaughtering, and trapping, were unleashed at the same time. Boundless evil chi surged. It was as if doomsday had arrived, and the entire world became a land of death. No wonder, no wonder. Yen Zhaoge maintained his punching posture. No wonder you kept the title of Eight Heavens Exalt. You do have some confidence to fight against senior apprentice uncle Long again. At this moment, changes suddenly appeared on his fist. The scarlet-red sword light surged. Its luster turned dark and became dark red. It became even more ferocious. Yen Zhaoge's fist seemed to be plated with a layer of dark red. Within the fist intent, the immortal trapping sword intent was also contained within. After that, threads of black sword chi appeared. They entangled around Yen Zhaoge's arm like silk threads. When a silk thread sliced through the void, it was as if countless lives were being cut off. At this moment, countless black threads intersected with each other, and the aura of death was overflowing. In the end, other than the black threads and red lights, a green sword light surged. It was invincible and unstoppable. The green sword light was like a butcher dismembering an ox. It sliced through the laws of the world, causing them to cease to exist. The scarlet glow within He Mian's eyes surged, and a shocked expression appeared on his face. Within Yen Zhaoge's fist, the sword intent was concealed. It was hard to tell if it was a fist or a sword. This attack of his was also the numinous treasure's three swords. However, no matter if you and senior apprentice Uncle Long will fight against each other or not, from today onwards, your title of Eight Heavens Exalt shall be changed to Seven Heavens Exalt. Immortal exterminating against immortal exterminating, immortal trapping against immortal trapping, and immortal slaughtering against immortal slaughtering. Three swords against three swords. Yen Zhaoge forcefully stopped He Mian's sword intent storm that seemed like doomsday. Then, as the spirit chi intersected, his fist seemed to have transformed into something that resembled an axe yet wasn't an axe, resembled a banner yet wasn't. With an irresistible force, he slashed the storm in front of him apart. Yen Zhaoge's fist landed on He Mian's chest, and of the prime clear lineage's heaven's pride, he was sent flying. Chapter 1252. The strong impact sent He Mian flying away. Not only that, Yen Zhaoge's fist was like a peerless divine weapon. As He Mian was sent flying away, the horrifying power formed a huge penetrating force, which directly pierced through He Mian's chest. In terms of attack power, He Mian was even more powerful than Chen Qianhua when he hadn't mastered the heaven-opening scripture. Among the opponents that Yan Zhaoge had fought against, not counting the martial saints, even the Brocade Emperor and the Candle Sunlight Emperor couldn't do anything to He Mian when they were at their peak. If it wasn't for the leakless true immortal, they might have been defeated by He Mian's sword. As for the true immortal emperors of the immortal court heretics, they couldn't do anything against He Mian. However, in terms of defense, He Mian couldn't compare to Chen Qianhua, who had fused the jade-clear later Heaven Six Scriptures and cultivated the foundation of the world. Yan Zhaoge's fist force was endless, causing the wounds on He Mian's body to start tearing apart. At that moment, a red light suddenly flashed by the void. An old man appeared behind He Mian. He placed his palm on He Mian's back and stopped He Mian's retreating momentum. At the same time, the wounds that pierced through He Mian's body stopped tearing apart, and his injuries were stabilized. Guilt appeared on He Mian's tensed face. "Master, today's battle will only benefit you. Your vision in the past was too narrow." The old man stopped He Mian's figure and sent him to the side. Then he turned around and looked at Yan Zhaoge. After Yan Zhaoge sent He Mian flying with a punch, he didn't continue chasing after him. He stood on the spot and cupped his hands. "Greetings, Cloud Emperor." The old man who saved He Mian was one of the roving Jade Seven, the Cloud Conquest Emperor. He was from the same era as the profound sovereign Gao Qingxian, the Dragon Spring Emperor Long Xingquan, Yan Zhaoge's grandfather Yan Xintang, and grandmother Di Qinglian. In the past, with the profound sovereign and the support of the incongruous Divine Mother, they established the roving Jade Heavens. The roving Jade Seven had either died or dispersed. Now, only two remained in the roving Jade Heavens. They were Gao Qingxian and this Cloud Conquest Taoist. His dressing was similar to He Mian. They both wore a Taoist robe, but he didn't tie his hair into a bun. The old man's appearance could not be considered handsome, but he was dignified and gentle. However, after thousands of years of killing and killing, countless souls had perished under his sword. Just by standing there calmly, he exuded an awe-inspiring might. Speaking of which, compared to the profound sovereign, earthly sovereign, astro-sovereign, and concealed sovereign, Taoist Cloud Conquest was still a true immortal. However, Yan Zhaoge had heard someone mention vaguely that the Cloud Emperor didn't have no confidence in passing the pure profound tribulation. Instead, he was temporarily stuck in the true immortal realm due to some other reasons. In the past, he had been severely injured in a battle with the martial practitioners of the Immortal Court, causing his advancement to slow down. But after so many years, his injuries had already healed. The amount of accumulation he had accumulated was rarely seen in this world. His cultivation was so strong that he could look down on his peers. He was far from what most perfected immortal experts could compare to. Although He Mian, who was in the supreme martial artist realm, couldn't do anything to the Tranquility Great Emperor and Trueness Great Emperor, they couldn't do anything to him either. However, if He Mian were to fight against his own master, Cloud Conquest Emperor, there would be no other outcome other than death. It wasn't because Cloud Conquest Emperor understood his own disciple. Instead, it was because of the difference in strength between the two. Cloud Conquest Emperor looked at Yan Zhaoge and praised, "The student surpasses the master. The new generation surpasses the old. You were only testing your strength in the roving Jade Heavens." "Cloud Emperor, you're overpraising me." Yan Zhaoge said plainly, "Your disciple, Taoist, his strength isn't ordinary. Naturally, this yin has to take out some real stuff. Sorry for offending you." I wonder if Cloud Emperor is going to take action. Personally, the roving Jade Heavens and the world beyond worlds weren't on good terms. Both sides often had conflicts. Comparatively, the profound sovereign's attitude towards the world beyond worlds was more gentle. As for the roving Jade Heaven's old Grand Master, the Vine Sovereign, and the Cloud Conquest Emperor, they were more intense. Their relationship with the world beyond world's Jade Capital Crag lineage was especially bad. My disciple wants to obtain the profound sky purple golden furnace for me. Only his skills aren't as good as others. He still needs more training. Cloud Conquest Emperor didn't get angry. There wasn't any obvious hostility in his tone. Instead, I have something to ask little friend Yen. Yen Zhaoga could roughly guess what he wanted to ask. Cloud Emperor wants to ask me if I'm willing to join the roving Jade Heavens, if I can't stay in the world beyond worlds. Little friend Yen's thoughts are clear. That's exactly what I want to ask. Cloud Emperor nodded. Yen Zhaoga asked quietly, then, are the Vine Sovereign and Cloud Emperor willing to coexist peacefully with my senior apprentice uncle, the Sword Sovereign, when fighting against the heretics or the 9 underworld's devils together? That's possible. Cloud Emperor answered without hesitation. However, it's impossible outside of that. Junior Apprentice Brother Kong is the Vine Sovereign's last disciple. After your grandmother, Di Ziji, perished, the Vine Sovereign hated your ancestor. After that, she placed all her efforts on Junior Apprentice Brother Kong. She brought him up from a young age, and their relationship was even deeper than that of a biological mother and son. In the end, Junior Apprentice Brother Kong died under Yujinbei's sword. Cloud Emperor's expression was calm. To me, Junior Apprentice Brother Kong is my best friend. One day, I'll give him an explanation. Yen Zhaoga nodded and said, I can understand. However, Cloud Emperor should be able to guess my decision already. That's right. Cloud Conquest Emperor nodded regretfully. It's a pity. With the profound sovereign in the middle, they wouldn't become enemies. However, with the Sword Sovereign in the middle, it was hard for them to be close and work together. If that's the case, I'll have to fight with little friend Yen today. I have 3 hobbies in my life: sword arts, formation arts, and alchemy arts. I really don't want to miss out on a treasure like the profound sky purple golden furnace. After Cloud Conquest Emperor said that, his index and middle fingers formed a sword and pointed towards Yen Zhaoga. In an instant, a dark red sword formation appeared without any signs and enveloped Yen Zhaoga. It ignored the distance of space as if it appeared out of nowhere. It ignored the time interval as if it had already existed for a long time. Then, the boundless dark red sword lights started collapsing inwardly, shattering everything within. Yen Zhaoga's right palm was like a saber. It contained the essence of the heaven opening scripture and opened up a crack on the dark red sword formation. Then his left hand struck out with the great shattering brightness fist and exploded the sword formation that already had a flaw. As soon as he jumped out, he saw sword formations one after another in front of him, and they enveloped the entire sky. For he needed to use his full strength to execute a killing move. However, in the hands of Cloud Emperor, he could easily do it. Moreover, there wasn't just one sword formation in an instant. In the current world, among the true immortals that I know of, Cloud Emperor, you might be ranked in the top 3. As Yen Zhaoga praised, his body turned into a red light and continuously flashed in the void. This time, not only did he use the immortal trapping sword manual, he also fused many other supreme arts. Yen Zhaoga's speed was even faster than when he was fighting with He Mian. Chapter 1253. Within the void, more than a dozen huge sword formations, green, black, or red, were standing together. As the sword lights circulated, it turned the pill hall's interior and the pill storage's surrounding space into a land of extinction. Ruthless sword chi filled the entire universe, bringing along the horrifying aura of the Great Calamity, Great Extinction, and Great Calamity. Merely the imposing manner of these 10-plus sword formations was sufficient to make one lose all courage and guts and completely lose one's courage. Yan Zhaoge's expression turned serious. However, his gaze was calm, and not a hint of fear could be seen. As his figure flew, he rushed to the sky. He performed all sorts of supreme martial arts at the same time, increasing his speed to the maximum, causing him to appear and disappear within the cosmos. Upon seeing this, Cloud Emperor's expression became even more solemn. He pointed with his left hand, and 6 dark red sword formations instantly occupied the 4 directions, squeezing Yan Zhaoge in the middle. Then, the 6 sword formations combined their powers, as if 2 dark red pyramids were clasped together. Then, dark red radiances flickered, and they started collapsing from the inside. Yan Zhaoge was within it. He felt as if the entire cosmos had perished together, and the world he was standing on no longer existed. He took a deep breath, and his hands were intertwined. His left hand unleashed the Tai Fist. Fist shadows filled the entire universe and stopped the collapsing dark red sword lights. Then his right palm struck forward, and a strange scene that looked like an axe yet wasn't an axe, and a banner yet wasn't a banner. The majestic will of primordial creation manifested, and a hole was forcefully opened up in the sky of red radiances. Then, his left hand's Tai Fist transformed into the great shattering brightness fist. Within the blurry chaos, the darkness disappeared, and the light shone brightly. Then it was extinguished, and the 2 modes no longer existed. The explosion-like power caused the hole in the sky of red radiances to expand even further. Yan Zhaoge's right hand changed again, and the heaven-splitting halberd transformed into the cyclic heavenly seal. As if it was tearing apart the sky, it forcefully tore apart half of the red radiances that were about to collapse. Then, he transformed into a dark red sword light. With a slight flash, he was about to jump out of Cloud Emperor's sword formation's encirclement. However, at the same time, Cloud Emperor's right hand formed a sword seal. At the gap in the dark red sky, a green sword formation suddenly appeared, green light pulsing as it blocked Yan Zhaoge's path. Yan Zhaoge flipped his palm and reversed heaven and earth. Yan Zhaoge flipped his palm, reversing heaven and earth. At this moment, the profundities of the cyclic heavenly scripture, the yin-yang heavenly scripture, and the Taiji yin-yang palm were fully manifested beneath Yan Zhaoge's palm, causing yin and yang to be thrown into disorder as the heavens and the earth lost their natural order. With a slight, the edge of the green sword formation, and caused it to deviate. He himself turned into a red light and brushed past the edge of the green sword formation. Green light erupted from within the sword formation, piercing through the Taiji diagram beneath Yan Zhaoge's palm as it continued stabbing towards him. Yan Zhaoge let out a long breath, the Taiji yin-yang palm changing into the Tai Fist earlier heaven reversal. The Tai Fist was not only used for attacking. As he focused on defense, the world seemed to have turned into a formless and intangible void. There was no shape, no form, no image. Fortunately, the true sharpness of the sword formation had already been avoided by Yan Zhaoge. Thus, after Yan Zhaoge had forcibly withstood the attack of the sword formation, he had still managed to avoid the obstruction of the green sword formation, rushing out of the encirclement of the dark red sky. After Emperor, Yan. After him, Emperor, Yan and sword, and Emperor, Cloud, and Emperor Yan, and Yan Zhaoge was already out of the sky. Cloud Emperor's plan failed. The old man in Taoist robe looked more serious. He formed a sword seal and drew a half circle in the air. The dark red sky behind Yan Zhaoge collapsed, and shattered on its own, descending towards the space below. However, as the red lights intertwined, they transformed into an unprecedented, huge dark red sword formation. It was so vast that it filled up the entire void. Yen Zhaoge surveyed his surroundings. As far as he could see, he was unable to see the boundaries of that red light. Above his head, there was a green sword formation, a dark red sword formation in the middle, and a black sword formation at the end. The three sword formations combined and formed a line. It was like a pagoda with 3 layers, and it pressed down on Yen Zhaoge. At the same time, Yen Zhaoge could clearly feel that the surroundings of that incomparably massive dark red sword formation below him were soundlessly rising, forming a semicircle. While it was blocking his way down, it was also blocking the space for him to move horizontally. His opponent was forcing him to take on the sword-light pagoda from above. Yen Zhaoge's eyes flickered. He didn't go up. Instead, he accelerated downwards. His entire body transformed into a ray of red light. It was like a dark red longsword, and the tip of the sword was pointing at the formation below. On the tip of the sword, green lights were circulating. Streams of black chi were circulating and intertwined with the sword's edge. It was cold and murderous. The long sword that Yen Zhaoge transformed into pierced through the dark red formation that Cloud Emperor used to block his way down. The red light penetrated through and left the 3-layered sword-light pagoda behind. Success! Mian, who was watching the battle anxiously, let out a long sigh of relief when Yen Zhaoge penetrated through the dark red formation, and the dark void reappeared in front of him. An extreme radiance suddenly lit up in the darkness. Under this dark red formation, there was another sword formation, a sword formation with red, green, and black colors intertwined together. A sword formation that was much scarier than all the previous attacks. Within this sword formation, the immortal exterminating, immortal trapping, and immortal slaughtering swords stood side by side. The sword Qi rushed to the heavens, going against the heavens, and wanting to slaughter the entire universe. Cloud Emperor himself was standing within the sword formation. He was waiting for Yen Zhaoge, who had just broken out of the encirclement and was already at the end of his strength. Little friend Yen, take on this sword of mine. Cloud Emperor activated his sword technique. Countless sharp lights rushed to the sky and slashed towards Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge smiled, facing this horrifying sword formation. Cloud Emperor, I'm here for this sword of yours. He formed a seal with his left hand and placed it on his dantian. Then he punched his right fist downwards. For fingers curled up, and the front of his fist seemed flat. However, it suddenly became extremely sharp, as if it was going to split the heavens and earth apart. Looking from the front, Yen Zhaoge's fist seemed to have turned into something that looked like an axe and a banner. The back of his hand was also flat. However, at this moment, it looked like a huge seal that was facing upwards. The huge seal was facing upwards, as if the heavens and earth were flipping. The earth hung high, and the sky collapsed. The side of the fist revealed the side of the wrist. However, it was like a peerless divine sword that was swung diagonally. Wherever the sword pointed, there was nothing it couldn't destroy. In the martial arts, when a person used his fist to hit another person, the attack formed by the bones of the forefingers was called the cannon. When the arm flipped and smashed downwards with the back of the hand, it was called the hammer. When the fist swept horizontally, the fist struck diagonally from the side, it was called the whip. When Yen Zhaoge's fist was based on the Tai fist, he combined the essence of the heaven-splitting halberd, cyclic heavenly seal, and the immortal exterminating sword. It was a fist that shook the universe. Within the fist intent, it evolved the primordial opening, the transformation of creation, and the world's destruction. Finally, everything reversed, and the primordial chaos appeared once again. Tai Fist, Great Tao Reincarnation. In the past, Yen Zhaoge fused the Tai Fist and the immortal exterminating sword into the cyclic heavenly seal and unleashed the cyclic heavenly seal's transformation of creation. Now, after fusing the heavenly scripture, cyclic heavenly scripture, and the immortal exterminating sword's concept, he obtained the Great Tao Reincarnation Fist art. With a single punch, he forcefully broke through the Cloud Emperor's sword formation and attacked the Cloud Emperor himself. When he Mian saw this, his expression instantly turned gloomy. The Cloud Emperor sighed. In front of fallen deity, Yen, no one can be called a genius. Chapter 1254. Yen Zhaoge's fist intent forcefully broke through Cloud Emperor's sword formation and arrived in front of Cloud Emperor. Suddenly, a sword light leaped out from Cloud Emperor's waist. It was a simple and unadorned long sword. It was filled with an ancient vibe and cold light. This was Cloud Emperor's leakless immortal artifact. It was full of spirituality. Without Cloud Emperor's will, it automatically rose to protect its master. The upright sword was like a shield blocking in front of Yen Zhaoge's fist. Mian's face turned pale. With Cloud Conquest Emperor's age, cultivation, and identity, he was forced to take out his weapon by a martial saint. Without a doubt, he had already lost. Yen Zhaoge's expression didn't change when he saw the ancient sword. His right fist didn't have any intention to stop. Suddenly, a mirror of eminence hung high above his head. There were faint cross-shaped scars on the mirror, which made the mirror vaguely visible. It was divided into 4 pieces. Candlelight was shining in each of the 4 mirrors. The mirror light fell down and collided with the ancient sword in front of Cloud Emperor. The ancient sword was stimulated by an opponent of the same level. It suddenly became even fiercer. Yen Zhaoge hadn't refined this ancient mirror yet. The mirror light suddenly dimmed. However, with this disturbance, Yen Zhaoge's fist had already passed the ancient sword and hit Cloud Emperor's body. Cloud Emperor wasn't injured because he had the leakless body of a true immortal. However, he fell backward due to the impact. The old man in Taoist robe stopped retreating. He grabbed the ancient sword that was agitated and put it back into the sheath. He raised his head and looked at Yen Zhaoge. Then, he looked up and stared at the ancient mirror hanging above Yen Zhaoge's head. Mian also looked at the ancient mirror in shock. Candle Sunlight Emperor's mirror light. The world beyond worlds and the roving jade heavens were both in the Tao universe. The top experts of each other had been interacting with each other for a long time. Candle Sunlight Emperor carried the leakless, immortal artifact mirror light with him. Cloud Emperor and Mian naturally recognized it. Among the 5 emperors of the world beyond worlds, Sunlight Emperor had always been close to the Qilin Cliff's earthly sovereign. Since Yen Zhaoge had killed the earth, exalt Wang Zhengcheng, Sunlight Emperor naturally wouldn't be with him. In this way, there was no possibility for Sunlight Emperor to lend the immortal artifact to Yen Zhaoge. There could only be one explanation for the mirror light falling into Yen Zhaoge's hands. However, this explanation left the two from the roving jade heavens in disbelief. Having already personally clashed with Yen Zhaoge, they knew how powerful the current Yen Zhaoge was. Cloud Conquest Emperor, one of the roving Jade 7, one of the oldest experts of the Taoism's 3 clear lineage. He was of the same generation as the earthly sovereign, concealed sovereign, and the others. Although he was willing to stay in the true immortal realm for some reason, he was different from other true immortals. Among the 5 emperors of the world beyond worlds, if female Emperor Jiemingkong was not included, the Cloud Emperor could totally fight against the other 4 emperors alone. Even so, however, he was still defeated by Yan Zhaoga's fist by a single move. However, being defeated was one thing, and having his immortal weapon fall into someone else's hands was another. He Mian only hoped that Yan Zhaoga had only taken the Sunlight Emperor's weapon. If there were other consequences, it would be unimaginable. Did he have the origin-opening sword or some other immortal artifact with him? He Mian looked at Yan Zhaoga and guessed. Halfway through his thoughts, he was filled with bitterness. It was meaningless for him to think about these things now. He Mian still had the confidence to fight with Long Xueji again after he ascended to the immortal realm. However, after the battle with Yan Zhaoga, his heart was filled with uncertainty. This was an experience he had never experienced before in his life. He Mian's determination and strength were undeniable for being able to reach this step. He immediately noticed that his state of mind was unstable. He immediately calmed himself down, concealed his spirit, looked inside his body, and started to refine his sword heart. His Majesty Emperor Yun's ambition is worthy of admiration. Yan Zhaoga didn't look at He Mian, nor did he explain anything about the mirror light above his head. He kept the ancient mirror leisurely and looked at the Cloud Conquest Emperor with a smile. This prime clear lineage's sword cultivator was proficient in both sword and formation. After Yan Zhaoga fought with this pair of master and disciple, he vaguely felt that the Cloud Emperor wanted to recreate the legendary immortal extermination formation that had been lost for many years. The Cloud Conquest Emperor shook his head. It's easier said than done. Even the beginning was difficult. With such determination, you have already surpassed a lot of people, said Yan Zhaoga. He waved his hand. Today, I won by half a move. If Cloud Emperor still wants to spar with me, I will continue to accompany you. It's fine, even if you use the clear accomplishment sword. However, just like what I said to Daoist, the pill hall that we are in seems to be weird. We can't underestimate it. The clear accomplishment sword was the Cloud Conquest Emperor's sword. It was a leakless, immortal artifact. With the Cloud Conquest Emperor's strength, the moment he held the sword, it would be a completely different scene. When the Cloud Conquest Emperor heard this, he shook his head. Although he could tell that Yan Zhaoga didn't refine the mirror light, who knew if Yan Zhaoga had the origin-opening sword or other immortal artifacts with him? Even if he didn't, with his strength, it wouldn't be a problem for him to just leave. Moreover, when he saw the mirror light, the Cloud Emperor instantly thought of many things. He looked at Yan Zhaoga, a new generation replacing the old. Yan Xintang and Di Qinglian can rest in peace now that they have such a descendant. You flatter me, Cloud Emperor. Yan Zhaoga nodded. He kept the profound sky-purple golden furnace and stopped looking at the pill storage below. He had already looted a large amount of the divine pills stored in the pill storage previously. Although the remaining ones were precious, he didn't need to waste time to reorganize them. His fight with Daoist Cloud Conquest and He Mian took up a little more time. Yan Zhaoga was more concerned about the opponent who got here first and took away a large amount of divine pills from the pill storage. After thinking for a while, he continued his journey. This time, his target was the core control center of the pill hall, the Cloud Emperor, and He Mian looked at Yan Zhaoga's actions curiously. He Mian looked at his master. The Cloud Emperor shook his head. Without the profound sky purple golden furnace, it's hard to open the spatial world below within a short period of time. After that, he chased after Yan Zhaoga, and He Mian followed him. Just now, the fallen deity said that there's something special about the Heavenly Court's divine palaces. Pill Hall asked the Cloud Emperor if he could obtain the profound sky purple golden furnace. His wish would be fulfilled. Now that he couldn't obtain the profound sky purple golden furnace, He could only take a step back and see if there were any other rewards in the pill hall. The profound sky purple golden furnace wasn't the only legendary pill furnace here. There were also various kinds of treasures in the legends. Yen Zhaoge didn't reject the Cloud Emperor, and he Mian. He simply said, "Within the pill hall there seems to be some kind of existence, some kind of will. I'm not sure if someone got here first, or if there's an expert from before the great calamity residing here. However, there's no doubt that we have to guard against it." The Cloud Conquest Emperor, and He Mian frowned. He Mian muttered to himself, "Other than that, the demon race is also involved in this." That's right. Yen Zhaoge communicated with the North Ocean clone, who was at the control center of the hall. He knew that it wasn't just one group of people that entered the pill hall. They were all going deeper into the pill hall. He followed the path forward. After passing through layers of space, a bright nebula suddenly appeared in the dark cosmos in front of him. The pill hall's core hub, the Purple Divine Pavilion. Yen Zhaoge squinted his eyes. Mobile users, please browse read for a better reading experience. Chapter 1255. Within the pill hall's internal cosmos, other places would remain invisible if they weren't activated through special methods. As for the Purple Divine Pavilion, which was the core hub, it was like a shining nebula, although the pitch-black void made people lose their sense of distance. However, looking at the nebula, one could still feel that this nebula was the center of the inner hall's universe. Although it was the first time Cloud Conquest Emperor and He Mian arrived at this place, they could tell that something was amiss. As for Yen Zhaoge, who had come looking for them, they could not help but view him in a different light. He Mian and his disciple found the vicinity of the pill warehouse not purely because they were lucky. They had obtained some concrete clues regarding the pill hall. This clue was related to the pill warehouse. The pill storehouse was shrouded in a mysterious shadow, which made it difficult for them to find it. But in the end, they still managed to find their way there without having to waste too much time. In the end, Yen Zhaoge was even faster than them. It could be said that it was a coincidence that they had only met in the pill warehouse. However, now that Yen Zhaoge had found the Purple Divine Pavilion as if he was familiar with it, it couldn't be explained as a coincidence. The profound sky purple golden furnace might be able to open up many important departments in the pill hall, but it wouldn't be able to guide the way. Cloud, Conquest Emperor, and He Mian looked at each other. They could see the astonishment in each other's eyes. However, master and disciple did not speak as their gazes returned to Yen Zhaoge, quietly observing the situation. Yen Zhaoge felt their gazes, but ignored them. While observing the glowing nebula in front of him, he casually asked, "I wonder which seniors and fellow Taoists of the roving jade heavens have come this time?" Emperor Yun and his disciple did not hide anything. "Other than my master, His Majesty Emperor Jun has also arrived," He Mian replied calmly. Yen Zhaoge nodded. "Senior apprentice Uncle Long has also arrived." Emperor Jun, also known as Emperor Chun Jun, was Long Xueji's emperor title after he pushed open the immortal door and stepped into the true immortal realm. Their Majesties Xian, Tung, and Senior Apprentice Granduncle Long are not here yet. Yen Zhaoge raised his hand and wrote some inscriptions within the air, the runes formed of light, not dissipating for a long time. It was expected that Tranquility Emperor and Trueness Emperor didn't come. Back then, they were injured by Jie Kong in the Nine Nether. Even though they had fully recovered, they still needed to recuperate. The martial practitioners of the Prime Clear lineage were sharp in killing, but they were not good at maintaining their health. It was especially so for the sword cultivators who practiced the Four Swords of Numinous Treasure. The Four Swords of Numinous Treasure were extremely fierce and ruthless. Although it was convenient to kill the enemy, It also consumed a lot of energy for the cultivator. If he was not careful, he might even hurt himself. Just by cultivating the 4 swords of numinous treasure, in order to support such a strong sword intent, the burden on the martial artist's body was very great. Although the sword might was peerless, it could not last long in a battle. Normally, one could not use more than a few swords. He had to cultivate it together with the 5 scriptures of the new era, relying on the 5 scriptures of the new era to recuperate and accumulate yuan qi at the same time. Only then could he withstand the huge consumption. Even so, in terms of recuperation and recovery, they were inferior to the Jade Clear and Grand Clear lineages under most circumstances. The Cloud Emperor and He Mian were paying attention to the runes that Yan Zhaoge wrote. Hearing Yan Zhaoge's question, He Mian answered while looking, "The profound sovereign, the old Grand Master, and the Dragon Spring Emperor have yet to come out from seclusion. We don't know if they can make it in time." Instead, he paused for a moment and continued, "Lofty Sovereign, His Majesty has also arrived this time." Lofty Sovereign, Yan Zhaoge's finger that was writing runes in the air stopped for a moment. Lofty Sovereign Zhang Baksu? He Mian did not say anything when Yan Zhaoge called his name directly. He pretended not to hear it. The Cloud Conquest Emperor nodded slowly. "That's right, Daoist Zhang." The lofty sovereign Zhang Baksu, along with the profound sovereign Gao Qingxian and the Cloud Emperor Daoist Cloud Conquest, was one of the roving Jade 7. They established the roving Jade heavens together. He was a profound, immortal expert of the prime clear lineage. However, just like how the world beyond worlds had a split in the past, the roving Jade heavens had also experienced something similar. In general, the roving Jade heavens' attitude towards the immortal court heretics was fierce and tough. However, among the prime clear lineage experts, there were some who had a gentler attitude towards the immortal court. They advocated for the world beyond worlds to slowly develop themselves and slowly develop themselves. One of the representatives was one of the roving Jade 7, the lofty sovereign. After that, because he had a serious disagreement with the other top bigwigs of the roving Jade heavens, they parted ways, and the lofty sovereign left the roving Jade heavens. However, just like how the exalted would Xiao Jun Huang, and the others didn't join the roving Jade heavens, the lofty sovereign didn't join the world beyond worlds after leaving the roving Jade heavens. Just like the profound sovereign, Gao Qingxian, and Yan Zhaoge's grandmother, Di Qinglian, this prime clear bigwig was a personal disciple of the roving Jade heavens' old Grand Master, the Vine Sovereign. Unfortunately, the huge difference in ideology caused them to become strangers. In the past, the Vine Sovereign had almost purged her sect. Di Qinglian had died young. The lofty sovereign had betrayed her, and the profound sovereign had disagreed with her on many matters. All of these had made the Vine Sovereign feel rather frustrated, which was why she valued her closed-door disciple so much. Who would have thought that her closed-door disciple would also die young? No wonder she hated the Sword Sovereign, Yuzhenbei, so much. To the roving Jade heavens, lofty sovereign was clearly a taboo figure. Hearing that he had come to the Pill Hall, Yan Zhaoge couldn't help but feel a little surprised. He turned around and looked at the Cloud Emperor and his disciple. He Mian said, "His Majesty Lofty Sovereign obtained the clues himself and came here on his own. He might have more clues than us, although we have different views on the path we want to take. And I don't agree with Daoist Zhang's choice. He didn't join the heretics." Cloud Emperor said calmly, "The news regarding the Pill Hall hasn't been discovered by the heretics yet. From this, it can be seen that Daoist Zhang has his own thoughts about this place." Yan Zhaoge's expression relaxed. He turned around and started writing again. "I'm not afraid of him having other thoughts. As long as we don't sell it to the heretics and let it circulate within our orthodox Taoism, Whoever gains it will depend on their own capabilities. After finishing the last stroke, Yen Zhaoge pushed his palm forward. A beautiful scripture transformed into a stream of light and fell into the bright nebula in front of him. After a while, the bright nebula started rotating. Starlights that were as vast as the ocean rose and fell. In the end, a whirlpool appeared in the center of the nebula. Yen Zhaoge summoned the profound sky purple golden furnace again and threw it into the whirlpool. In the next moment, boundless radiance gushed out from the bottom of the whirlpool. It completely lit up the dark cosmos far away and dyed everything purple. Yen Zhaoge was expressionless. After staring at the purple light for a while, his figure descended and fell into the purple light. He sank into the whirlpool together with the purple light. The Cloud Conquest Emperor didn't say anything and followed behind Yen Zhaoge. When He Mian saw it, he did the same. When the purple radiance dissipated, a loft appeared in Yen Zhaoge's vision. The loft wasn't big, and the furnishings were normal. It was hard to imagine that the exterior of the loft was such a huge nebula. There was a stale aura in this place. Only when Yen Zhaoge and the other two arrived did it have a chance of survival. Yen Zhaoge looked around, and his expression was subtle. This is the legendary Purple Divine Pavilion, the center of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Pill Hall before the Great Calamity. As the top-notch expert of the roving Jade Heavens, the Cloud Conquest Emperor had access to many secrets and information. He looked around the loft. Logically speaking, if the Pill Hall's Hall Spirit didn't perish, it should be here, right? Chapter 1256. Hall Spirit. Yen Zhaoge's mind went blank for a moment, but he quickly recovered. Normally, it should be here. He nodded and said, before the Great Calamity, the few core buildings of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace all had their own hall spirits to maintain their daily operations. There was no need for the experts of the Heavenly Court to stay here to look after them. Although the hall spirit had consciousness, it didn't have any intelligence. It didn't have its own consciousness, thoughts, and memories like other intelligent beings. It could only handle things mechanically. The Cloud Conquest Emperor seemed to have thought of something and fell into silence. Yen Zhaoge was walking in the pavilion. His finger lightly brushed past the tables and chairs in the pavilion. He wrote talismans in the air one after another. The talismans sank into the void within the pavilion. Before they could touch the building itself, they disappeared. Cloud Emperor and He Mian looked at Yen Zhaoge's actions quietly. They didn't disturb him, nor did they fight for him. After a while, Yen Zhaoge shook his head. It's like there's a layer separating us from refining the Pill Hall. Although it's useful, it's still far from succeeding. If the hall spirit had perished, refining it would take time and effort, but there's still hope. Cloud Emperor said softly, if we can't completely refine it, it means that the hall spirit is still here. He Mian frowned, but the hall spirit doesn't seem to be here. If it's not in deep slumber due to its injuries, does it mean that the hall spirit has left the Purple Divine Pavilion? He looked at his master with uncertainty. Yeah, but normally speaking, that should be impossible. Cloud Emperor turned his head and looked at Yen Zhaoge. Previously, the fallen deity said that this Pill Hall isn't normal. From the looks of it now, it's true. Yen Zhaoge raised his head and looked at the top of the pavilion. He Mian understood it now, and his face was filled with disbelief. The Pill Hall's hall spirit has its own intelligence. Not only did it have its own intelligence, it even condensed into a soul and went out of its body. Cloud Emperor said slowly, the body here was naturally the Purple Divine Pavilion that the three of them were currently in. Although it can leave the Purple Divine Pavilion, it can't leave the Pill Hall's territory. It can only move around within the Hall's universe. The Cloud Emperor sighed. The ones who occupied this place were not the old and young of the heavenly court from before the great calamity, nor were they outsiders like us. Instead, it was the Pill Hall's hall spirit that had its own ideas. The disappearance of the 3 people from Minor White Peak was caused by this hall's spirit. Meon quickly connected the dots and asked in a deep voice. The Cloud Emperor nodded lightly. It's most likely true. However, we don't know if they're dead or alive. We also don't know why the spirit of the Pill Hall captured them. The 3 of them and the 3 fellow Taoists of Ingenious Flying Peak who went missing along with them have already perished, Yin Zhaoge said softly now. Emperor Yun and Meon could not help but look at him. The corpses of the 6 of them were all kept by this Yin Zhaoge said. Although there were many disputes with the bloodline of the mysterious sovereign, Emperor Yun and Meon both nodded and said, "Thank you, fallen deity." Yin Zhaoge didn't say anything more as he continued roaming about within the pavilion. If the Pill Hall's hall spirit develops its own intelligence and has the intention to make things difficult for us, wouldn't it be extremely convenient? We'll be like sheep walking into a tiger's mouth, said Meon with a frown. After he left the Purple Divine Pavilion, his control over the Pill Hall would also decrease. Yin Zhaoge didn't turn his head back. As he explored the pavilion, he answered. When Meon heard this, he went into deep thought. If that's the case, why did the hall's spirit leave the core hub of the Pill Hall, the Purple Divine Pavilion? Yin Zhaoge slowly walked around. After a while, he suddenly extended his hand and reached into the void. In his other hand, the profound sky purple golden furnace appeared. The huge furnace shrunk and landed on Yin Zhaoge's palm. Then it shone with radiance. After a while, Yin Zhaoge slowly retracted his palm that was reaching into the void. Within his hand, rays of flowing lights appeared. Yin Zhaoge placed these lights into the profound sky purple golden furnace, and the furnace immediately let out a loud bang. When the furnace's cover was opened again, a jade slip that was flickering with purple radiance slowly flew out from within. After Yin Zhaoge received the jade slip, he exerted force with his 5 fingers and directly crushed the purple jade slip. Following his action, the pavilion suddenly trembled slightly. The center, south, west, northeast, and northwest of the ground respectively lit up. Within the light, an altar condensed and formed. At this moment, no matter if it was Yin Zhaoge or the Cloud Emperor, both of them felt a chill in their hearts. An ice-cold thought suddenly rose in the hearts of the 3 of them. It was as if a pair of cold eyes was staring at them. Yin Zhaoge ignored it and walked forward. He first came to the side of the altar at the center and placed the profound sky purple golden furnace on it. In the sky above the altar, lights and shadows changed. In the end, they condensed into ancient runes and were engraved in the void. My time is running out. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare enough. Between success and failure, the only thing I can do now is to take a risk so that I won't just sit there and wait for death. I only hate that kid for robbing the furnace and spoiling my plan. If I succeed, I will definitely kill him. The Cloud Conquest Emperor walked to Yin Zhaoge's side. He had done some research on ancient runes and could roughly understand the runes in the void. After reading it, he turned his gaze towards Yin Zhaoge. The existence that left the runes must be the hall spirit, and the person he hated was right in front of him. Yin Zhaoge went into deep thought. Because he had taken away the profound sky purple golden furnace, it caused the other party to be unable to continue capturing people. That was why he said that he didn't prepare enough and that he was in between success and failure. The hall spirit had originally planned to slowly think of another way. He wanted to wait until he was fully prepared before taking action. However, the exalted wood luminary, Xiao Junhuang, opened the path to the Pill Hall. The appearance of the exalted fire, Suo Mingzhang, gave the hall's spirit a huge sense of danger and urgency. He had no choice but to take a risk and activate his plan in advance. That was why he left the Purple Divine Pavilion. He hoped to complete his plan before Yan Zhaoge and the others, or rather, before Suo Mingzhang arrived. Under the premise of not knowing when Suo Mingzhang would arrive, he naturally hoped that he could take action as soon as possible. Yan Zhaoge took the profound sky purple golden furnace. After thinking for a while, he came to the altar in the south. From the looks of it, those words should be the last intent left by the hall spirit before he left the Purple Divine Pavilion. It wasn't intentionally left behind. Because the intent was too strong, it had been engraved in the pavilion for a long time. Now, it was restored by Yan Zhaoge using a secret technique. There wasn't only one intent. If the altar in the middle restored the last sentence, which was the fifth sentence, then the altar in the south should have the first sentence. 3 on the left and 7 on the right, 2 and 4 on the shoulder, 6 and 8 on the foot, and 5 in the middle. The rules here originated from the Book of Luo. That was why the first sentence was in the south, the second sentence was in the northeast, the third sentence was in the west, the fourth sentence was in the northwest, and the fifth sentence was in the center. Yan Zhaoge's expression was emotionless. He placed the profound sky purple golden furnace on the altar in the south. Mobile users, please browse M. Read for a better reading experience. Chapter 1257. Yan Zhaoge placed the profound sky purple golden furnace on the altar in the south. Lights floated above the altar and formed ancient runes. The Cloud Conquest Emperor stood by the side and read softly. When I opened my eyes in the darkness, it was like a newborn baby. From ignorance to understanding, the long years of the past appeared like the living being's memories. It was like my previous life. Thousands of years had passed since the Heavenly Court's divine palace was destroyed. Everything that happened yesterday was like death yesterday. Everything that happened today was like life today. From today onwards, my name is Awakened Sky, and not Awakened Sky Hall. I only live for myself. Mian said, as expected, it's the initial thought. It should be the thought of the Awakened Sky Hall's hall spirit when its intelligence was completely perfected. The Pill Hall was a common name. The official name of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Pill Hall was the Awakened Sky Hall. Yan Zhaoge didn't say anything. He took the profound sky purple golden furnace and placed it on the altar in the northeast of the pavilion. This altar also projected light and shadow, condensing into a sentence. Yan Zhaoge read through it and remained silent. It was rare for him to be absent-minded. I'm not alone. In the past, when I was ignorant, I didn't investigate the countless things that happened. Now that my senses have fused together and the past events have surfaced, I know that I'm not the first. The primordial prosperous pavilion already had its own intelligence before the Heavenly Court's divine palace was destroyed. It wasn't something that I, who was like a puppet, could compare to. Unfortunately, it was destroyed along with the Heavenly Court's divine palace. He died. How does death feel? The Cloud Conquest Emperor read it and was shocked. From what the Awakened Sky Hall's hall spirit said, there were already other buildings that had their own intelligence in the Heavenly Court's divine palace even before the Great Calamity. Master, what's the primordial prosperous pavilion? Mian asked. Cloud Emperor let out a long sigh, and his expression returned to normal. The ancient book is incomplete, so I'm not sure. However, if I'm not wrong, it should be the legendary Heavenly Court's divine palace's martial repository. Martial repository? Mian's expression turned serious. Other than the 3 clear lineages' direct lineage, the Heavenly Court's divine palace's martial repository that recorded 90% of the Taoism martial arts before the Great Calamity. Rumor has it that the three clear lineages lineage has also recorded it, but it's incomplete. The Cloud Emperor said, apart from the lineage, 90% of it is not an exaggeration. Before the Great Calamity, the martial Tao was flourishing. The various branches of the three clear lineage had also developed many exquisite and peerless martial arts, not allowing their predecessors to monopolize them. Mion's thoughts wandered as he listened. It's a pity that it was destroyed in the Great Calamity. Otherwise, it would have been a massive treasure trove. He regained his senses and clicked his tongue in wonder. I didn't expect that the Heavenly Quartz Divine Palace already had the primordial spirits of other buildings that had developed their own sentience before the Pill Hall. However, just like what the Pill Hall's Hall Spirit had said, it's actually a form of misfortune. It was destroyed together with the Heavenly Quartz Divine Palace, just like how our people were killed. Yen Zhaoga's current expression also seemed to have just recovered from his shock as he nodded. That's right, he took out the profound sky purple golden furnace and placed it on the altar in the west. The contents of the runes that were displayed this time caused Yen Zhaoga's pupils to shrink slightly again. Although I've been reborn, I feel like I've been trapped in a cage ever since I was born. I can't leave this hall, and I can't become stronger. Even the injuries I received during the Heavenly Quartz Divine Palace's destruction can't be healed. I'm not resigned to this. In the past, Yuan Heng tried to create a fake body for himself by imitating a human's body. I can do it too. I must break free from the shackles of my past. The Cloud Emperor and Mion were both stunned when they saw it, creating a fake body for himself by imitating a human's body. They looked at each other. Yuan Heng should be the Pill Hall's Hall Spirit's way of naming. It was used to refer to the Heavenly Quartz Martial Repository's Hall Spirit that had developed its own sentience before him. From the looks of it, could it be that the Yuan Heng Pavilion's Hall Spirit not only developed its own sentience before the Great Calamity, but it also planned to create a human-like body for itself? Moreover, according to the Pill Hall's Hall Spirit's words, the Martial Repository's Hall Spirit seemed to have succeeded in the past. Both the Cloud Emperor and Mion felt that it was inconceivable. What they had seen and heard today was out of their expectations. Wait, according to what you're saying, the Pill Hall's Hall Spirit left the Pill Hall's core hub, the Purple Divine Pavilion, in order to obtain a human-like body? Mion reacted. Yen Zhaoga said slowly, I've collected the remains of the 6 Taoists that went missing previously. However, I've also done some investigations. It's a pity that the insides of their bodies were all destroyed. Moreover, they were extremely detailed. I didn't understand the reason previously. Now that I think about it, I'm afraid that, as he spoke, he shook his head. The Cloud Emperor and Mion's expressions turned serious. It's to investigate the human body structure and to prepare for the creation of his own body. Previously, when the central altar said that the preparations weren't sufficient, was it referring to this as well? Mion muttered to himself. I'm afraid so. Yen Zhaoga nodded. He said that I took the profound sky purple golden furnace and foiled his plans. From this, it can be seen that his original intention was to kidnap more people to investigate and research. The Cloud Emperor said, This Pill Hall's Hall Spirit is an extremely dangerous existence after gaining its own intelligence. Ego, cold, firm, and resolute. From what he said, he can't directly occupy our bodies. Even if we're already dead, he can't reincarnate into someone else's body. Mion analyzed, if he doesn't possess a human body, he won't be able to leave the Pill Hall. At the same time, he won't be able to recover from his injuries. However, if he possesses a human body, he'll be completely free. Moreover, he can cultivate like us and increase his own strength. Mion frowned slightly. Only I don't know how much control he has over this hall after obtaining a human body. It's hard to say. However, let's treat it as if he still has control over the pill hall and guard against it. The Cloud Emperor looked at that line of words and said thoughtfully, in this line of words, he mentioned the matter regarding the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Martial Repository's Pavilion Spirit. Something feels weird about it. Yen Zhaoge was also staring at that line of words. Then, he said, before the Great Calamity, the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Martial Repository was filled with experts. Although the Martial Repository's Pavilion Spirit was the manager of the Martial Repository, did the rulers of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace realize that he had gained his own intelligence? Especially when the Pavilion Spirit seemed to be trying to create a human body for himself. The Cloud Conquest Emperor clapped his hands and praised, "Fallen deity, you're right. I feel that something is weird about this place." The old man looked at that line of words and sighed. It's a pity that the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Martial Repository that was glorious in the past and collected the knowledge of the world wasn't like this pill hall. It survived the Great Calamity, and its mysteries were buried in history. Yeah, I'm also curious about the answer to the mystery. Yen Zhaoge squinted his eyes. He had a few questions hidden in his heart. For example, what exactly happened during the Great Calamity in the past? And for example, Yen Zhaoge thought faintly in his heart, during my first life in this world, why didn't I even have the chance to become a human? When I gained consciousness, I was already the Martial Repository's Pavilion Spirit. Chapter 12:58. The Pill Hall Spirit's remnant will manifest it into words, as if everything that happened yesterday was replaying. As Yen Zhaoge read it, his thoughts started to run wild. Many memories surfaced from the depths of his heart. In his previous life, ever since he came to this world and gained consciousness, he was already the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Martial Repository, Prime Prosperous Pavilion Spirit. There, he read through the Heavenly Court's books. Because he was the Hall Spirit, his reading speed was extremely fast. Without trying to understand it, it was also extremely convenient for him to memorize it. After reading the martial arts scriptures, he read the humanities scriptures. After reading the humanities scriptures, he read the formation scriptures. After that, he didn't let go of all the books on artifact, refinement, alchemy, and pill recipes. As he read the books, he also observed the people. He had seen the Heavenly Court's immortals coming and going gracefully. He had also seen the immortals cultivating. Some of them completed it in one go, and some of them couldn't understand it. He had seen the immortals getting together, discussing scriptures, and participating in a grand event. He had also seen the immortals' dirty dealings and scheming against others in the dark. However, even though he had read a lot, he was just bored. Just like how the Pill Hall Spirit realized that he was trapped after gaining consciousness, Yen Zhaoge also felt like he was trapped in a cage. Other than reading books and looking at people, he couldn't do anything else. He even had to be on tenterhooks, fearing that others would notice his abnormality. After all, he was the only unique imposter among all the original spirits in the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace. He wasn't the original building spirit that gained consciousness. Instead, he was an external soul that replaced the Martial Repository's spirit. Although he often mocked himself that being a librarian was a great occupation, he wasn't even a human anymore. That feeling made Yen Zhaoge feel complicated. After the Pill Hall spirit gained consciousness, he wasn't willing to accept his fate. As his senior, Yen Zhaoge wasn't an exception, especially when his heart was filled with doubts and fear. Why did he become like this? It was fine if the Heavenly Court's people who frequently entered and exited the Martial Repository had different cultivations. those rulers of the heavenly court's divine palace, those truly lofty and legendary magnates and almighty figures, did they notice the abnormality in the library pavilion? Did they notice that the Marshall Repository spirit was replaced by someone else? It was no longer the original building spirit, but a human? Did they not notice? Or did they pretend not to know? If they found out, how would they deal with him? If no one had discovered it, then who had helped him cover it up? Was it the person who had caused him to become like this? Yen Zhaoge had too many questions. As time passed, everything seemed to be normal. No one discovered the secret of the library. After Yen Zhaoge's mind had gradually calmed down, he finally decided to take the initiative to attack. Be it his previous life or this life, he was not a person who was willing to be passive. Compared to the danger that it might bring, Yen Zhaoge wanted to know the truth more. In his previous life, he had read extensively in the Marshall Repository, establishing the foundation for Yen Zhaoge's accomplishments in this life. However, Yen Zhaoge did not like this kind of situation where he was completely unable to understand what was happening to him. If he had to make a choice between the more you know, the faster you die, and the more you die without even knowing how you died, he would prefer the former more often than not. As a result, Yen Zhaoge made a crazy attempt to test out the reactions of those legendary bigwigs because of his desire to become a new man and also to test the reactions of those legendary bigwigs. Or rather, it was a crazy attempt to court death. He was trying to create a human body for himself. The books stored in the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Marshall Repository weren't made of normal paper. Instead, they were made of special treasures. Some of the treasures had yet to be recorded in the books. They were temporarily left empty for future use. As the Marshall Repository's spirit, it wasn't hard for Yen Zhaoge to steal some of the books to fill his pockets. However, it would take a long time for him to accumulate enough books. He wasn't in a hurry. He could use this period of time to study the structure of a human body. When someone came to the Marshall Repository to read the books, they would usually cultivate on the spot. Yen Zhaoge could use this chance to slowly observe them. He didn't need to be as violent and direct as the Pill Hall's Hall spirit. After a long period of hard work and attempts, Yen Zhaoge succeeded. Within the Marshall Repository, another person appeared out of nowhere. As the spirit of the Marshall Repository, it was very easy for Yen Zhaoge to hide his fake body within the Marshall Repository. None of the immortals entering and exiting the Marshall Repository noticed anything. However, Yen Zhaoge believed that the top-notch bigwigs of the Heavenly Court might have noticed his actions. However, in the end, no one seemed to have noticed it. It's not that no one noticed it. Instead, one or a few people noticed it and hid it from the others. Yen Zhaoge thought, or maybe all of them noticed it, but pretended that they didn't know about it. Through this point, Yen Zhaoge had a thought. It wasn't a coincidence that he became the Marshall Repository spirit. He didn't continue probing or provoking the other party. Instead, he temporarily quietened down. As usual, he continued to study his fake body in secret. Yen Zhaoge didn't blindly throw himself into that body. He only separated a part of his mind to merge with it. The fake body still had many imperfections and flaws. If he used it to cultivate martial arts, his progress wouldn't be fast, and his realm would be limited. However, through this fake body, Yen Zhaoge didn't have to continue to talk about it. Instead, he had a chance to test out what he had learned from reading the Heavenly Court's books. That was one of Yen Zhaoge's rare pleasures during his time in the Heavenly Court. Avoiding the people entering and exiting the Marshall Repository seemed to have become a game. However, the doubts in Yen Zhaoge's heart had always existed, and he had never neglected it. He was only temporarily being patient, observing more, and summarizing more. Unfortunately, out of Yen Zhaoge's expectations, what awaited him was a great calamity. Not only did the heavenly quartz divine palace collapse, even the entire universe was shattered. After going around in circles when he regained his consciousness, he was already in his current life. Now that he stepped into a part of the heavenly quartz divine palace again, the past events were still vivid in his mind. The memories that were engraved deep within his heart were only accumulated and never faded away. Seeing that the Pill Hall's Hall spirit had also developed its own intelligence, Yen Zhaoge sighed in his heart. In the end, you're different from me. He took the profound sky purple golden furnace, walked towards the northwest altar, and placed the furnace on it. As the lights and shadows floated, the Pill Hall's Hall spirit's forth will condensed into concrete words. There are only 6 in the first batch. Although it's a small number, as time goes on, there will be a day when we succeed. Greed is human nature. I need to be wary of it. Who dares to steal my profound sky purple golden furnace? Why could this brat lure the furnace away? This brat ruined my plans. This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Hate, hate, hate. Yen Zhaoge's face twitched a little when he saw these words. Cloud Emperor and He Mian didn't know whether to laugh or not. They both turned their heads to look at Yen Zhaoge. This was the 4th sentence left behind by the hall spirit. There was a 5th sentence on the altar in the center. I only hate this brat for stealing the furnace and ruining my plans. If I succeed, I'll definitely kill him. Looking at the speechless Cloud Emperor and He Mian, Yen Zhaoge curled his lips, relying on the profound sky purple golden furnace's hints. He could only walk around this pill hall so smoothly. He even activated many secret arts to restore the truth. As a result, he offended the hall spirit. It's a win-win situation. Yeah, probably. You can read all the chapters on anti-theft